Hello, everyone. Apologies for the wait, but thank you all for joining me in yet another episode of The Whitepill. Just before we get started, I just want to say apologies for the lack of, how do I put this? Lack of attention towards the last episode, where we covered, with my co host, Mr. Fireside Talks, we covered the COVID-19 pandemic, but just the events leading up to the trucker convoy. Um, did not provide as much attention to the story as I thought I would. So we're going to redo that episode next week. So this coming Wednesday, it's part of our, it's going to be part of our 4 episode series where we essentially cover everything from before the convoy, during the convoy, and afterwards, and where it leaves us. And the reason that we're doing it now is because right now is actually today is the anniversary of the Freedom Convoy. And I mean, there wasn't a single day that was considered the Freedom Convoy Day. But apparently, this is what Wikipedia has as its entry. You know, people were there in Ottawa before the protests, and then also if you consider the protests on the bridges, right, when people actually landed and when they left, and so on and so forth. There's different dates, but apparently January 22nd to February 23rd, I believe, is officially Convoy Month. So, you know, the blacks can have a month, the gays can have a month. Why not the convoy? Why not the single single greatest protest movement in modern history? And that also includes America as well, right? I'm not just talking about Canada. At least for North America, that easily stands out. And I'm not just saying that because I'm Canadian, right? Because I'm biased. Sure, fine. Maybe there's a little bias. You gotta root for the home team. But ultimately, it's the most successful protest because it was fundamentally peaceful. It operated as such. It impeded people's lives, but not enough for it to be a major problem, right? Like the events at Ottawa are separate from what happened in the bridge. Not separate as in they weren't related and they weren't part of the same movement, but if we're separating those, then yeah, the bridges absolutely. I mean, causing hundreds of millions. I mean, that's what they said in the estimates, anyways. Hundreds of millions of trade from going across the bridges. That's gonna put a dent. That's gonna get them to pay attention, right? Nobody's ballsy enough to do that. But you know, we had to get their attention somehow. You know, if we just blocked off a street in Ottawa, well, they'll just go around us and eventually get rid of us. But the bridge convoys really did help put the pressure and put the screws to the national government, as they should, as they absolutely should. Because for everything that they did to Canadians, for everything they did to me, to my friends, my family, my loved ones, my community, and the nation at large, that is the least that the government deserved. That is the absolute least. They got off easy. They got off easy. But in any case, so because of those reasons and because it was ultimately a people's movement, you know, they tried to link it to Russian interference, foreign interference, American interference. I mean, realistically, like the largest donators were Canadians. You know, that's why they went after our bank accounts. You know, they didn't petition the federal government in America to go after their people's bank accounts because number one, they wouldn't be able to do that. But apparently in Canada, we can just do that. We can seize people's money, right? And as I've said many times on the show, your money that you make on this planet is essentially not a metaphor, but it's a symbol of the time that you put in on this earth, right? The time that you spend away from your family, the time that you spend away from doing what you love, your hobbies, right? Just living. Because most people don't live through their jobs. It's not, you know, they have their job and they have their life. Unless you're lucky enough to have both of them actually coexist, which is the minute percentage of people. Fundamentally, it's the time that you have on this planet. And because it's finite, that is absolutely, like, it should be treated with the same caution and same reverence as you spend your time doing anything else, right? And the government just went in and said, fuck it, we'll take it. We'll seize your accounts. You don't even have to be at the convoy. You could have just donated $5, $10, $20, however much. They didn't care. They didn't care. They did not care. And that was actually one of the things that stopped me from donating because I thought, man, I'm living during COVID, job stability is very difficult now. What do I do? How do I balance that? Because if my money goes, well, what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to pay rent? How long is my money going to be seized for? That certainly, made me stop in my tracks for a second. And I guess that's their objective. That's what they wanted to do. And so because people defied the government so openly in such a peaceful way, like they were in trucks. There's videos that we'll show you, right? Because as we do these episodes, but before I get too long of a tangent, we'll show you all the evidence, right? My co-host there was actually at the convoy himself. So we have plenty of video proof to show that it was ultimately a peaceful protest. There were bouncy castles. There was remember somebody built like a sauna or like a hot tub essentially. They just filmed it with really warm water. Yeah, the kids were playing hockey. People were singing. They were talking to each other and just turning to each other and telling them their life story and what it meant for them to be there. In the dead of winter, in minus 20 to 30 degree weather, which is what we have right now, basically, right? Imagine right now, if you're anywhere near the Canada-US border, if you're that far up north, you know exactly what that cold is like. After 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, now imagine for weeks on end inside of truck cabins, which are not exactly the warmest of places, especially if your truck isn't running, right? So for all those reasons, because it was a people's movement, because it actually put the screws to the government, but not in a destructive way. They weren't going around and rioting. They weren't destroying property. They weren't causing fights. All the government had to do, literally just walk over not even 50 meters, which is the steps of Parliament, to where they were protesting. Literally a city block's worth of walking. All the leaders had to do, bring a fuck ton of RCMP, right? Maybe set up a booth, maybe find an intermediary where they can meet up at a safe location so that they don't know who's who, or rather who's where. There were a million ways that the government could have gone about that, and they decided to just fucking smash these people. They decided to just absolutely obliterate them. Send cops on horses. They trampled some 80-year-old woman. And people in Canada saw it as an extremist movement, and they just absolutely demonized the hell out of them. Anytime anyone talks about the convoy, it's like you're risking stepping on a social landmine. Where you stand on the convoy, it tells me what kind of a Canadian you are. And that tells everyone that actually knew what was going on and how unjust the government acted. Fine. Even if you're still not convinced, even after all that, if you're still not convinced, look at what the federal court ruled twice. The first time, right, they ruled that the Emergencies Act, which is what the government used in order to squash the protest, a wartime act, an act that is specifically made so that during war, if there's an invasion or, God forbid, whatever, they can just suspend all civil liberties. Freedom of communication, freedom of association, all of it. Right? Suspend them for the sake of the nation. Yeah, totally understand why you would need an act like that. Totally get the rationale. But they used it against their own people during peacetime. And they argued that they needed to. They couldn't move the protesters elsewhere because of it. They were blocking too much traffic. There's essences of extremism. This diagolon movement. Fucking Christ. It just, all of that, everything that they did to well-meaning Canadians that just wanted their lives back, everything that they did was ruled illegal by the courts twice. The first time, right, they went through all the public hearings, they presented all the evidence, the courts had to take a look at them, ruled it illegal. That wasn't enough for the government. Of course it wasn't. Of course. They're not going to back down from this shit. So they appeal, right? The federal government appeals. It goes back to court, going through years and years of just, once again, looking at the records, looking at all the evidence, and they ruled it illegal twice in a row. That was 6 days ago. The feds haven't said shit about it. When they were at the WEF, some of them got questioned by random reporters, which we'll show you as well during the series. Didn't say shit, stayed just tight lips. Because they have to. Because they have to. I mean, if they don't, their fucking heads are gonna roll. Or somebody's. And somebody will have to pay for this. Somebody will be held to account. Most likely a group of somebodies, but you guys know what I mean. In any case, all of that, right? All of that is part of a series that Mr. Fireside and I are doing. Next episode is on Wednesday, so we're going to be doing it every Wednesday for the next 3 weeks, covering the entire convoy and everything that happened, and why it's the single greatest social movement in North American modern history, without a doubt. Fuck BLM. Fuck the Free Palestine. No. All that out the window. Pales in comparison to the Freedom Convoy and what it achieved in a month that entire movements haven't been able to do for decades. So we'll get into all that. But for tonight's topic, we're talking about Mark Carney's, for the majority of it anyways, his speed run through the most oppressive nations on earth. The guy's like actually a madman. He's setting records with how fast he's going to these places. It's actually fucking insane. You got to respect it. And actually, sorry, one last thing, forgot before we can begin. If you want to support the stream, like, comment, subscribe, as per always. I do not read donations or chat throughout the stream. The only time that I ever do that would be at the end. And if you want to have your donation read on stream, you can go to the PayPal, which is in the first link of the website, which is bio.link/whitepill. I have it in every description of the video. It's in my Twitter profile. You can find it everywhere. You know what? Let me just drop that in the chat. I might as well just do it now. Perfect. So yeah, the PayPal link you guys can use to, let me just link that. Beautiful. Fantastic. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let me just pull up my notes here. So before we get even into Qatar, after Carney left China, apparently from some Chinese representatives' understanding, the deal is actually not set, and there's quite a few details that are left to be worked out, specifically the one regarding visas. So there's a video with this, but basically, China's ambassador in Ottawa says the Prime Minister Mark Carney's claim that Beijing is about to lift its visa requirements for Canadians is not yet official, suggesting the move is still under consideration. Quote, I did notice that Prime Minister Mark Carney made it public that the Chinese side told them that China is actively considering giving unilateral visa-free treatment to Canadian citizens. In terms of what specific visa policy that will be, we need to wait for the official announcement of the Chinese side. So already there's not a clear understanding, right? Not a clear agreement. Because if the party line in Beijing was, yes, yeah, everything that we agreed to in this meeting, this will be done and done, right? The word is law type of thing, right? Whatever documents they sign, they have lawyers and councils and God knows who else that look through it beforehand. I guarantee it. There's no way the Chinese are flipping through that and be like, oh yeah, by the way, Canada owns, what have you. There's no surprises here. They know exactly what they're walking into, right? The negotiations behind closed doors. They speak openly, right? The whole thing is that it's fair play. You're supposed to agree to the terms that you actually discuss. Which, fine, sure. Maybe there's deliberations a day after, and this is normal. Like, not all negotiations are just perfect, said and done in person. I understand that, right? That is a thing that happens in geopolitics. People take their word back. But this is already not signaling a great start to the deal. Not to mention all the stuff regarding like the EVs, how it's just an absolute security concern. The fact that they want to work with our RCMP, our federal police. They want to work with our intelligence agencies. Yeah, that's not a fucking good sign. Right now, I went all over that in the, not the last episode, but the one before last, if you want to check all that out. But anyway, so that's on the visa side. And it looks like there's already been some interference on social media regarding Carney's trip to China. So this happened supposedly, right? Coming from this social network analysis firm that's based in New York. They say that Chinese state and pro-China accounts amplified Prime Minister Mark Carney's statements across major Western platforms during his January 14th to 17th trip to Beijing, praising Canada while using his remarks to criticize U.S. policy towards China in geopolitical messaging. The same messaging that Graphica suggests mirrors a pattern observed prior to the 2025 Canadian general election, when pro-China actors promoted Carney's stance on U.S. tariffs to advance narratives aligned with China's strategic goals. So during the federal election, right, in 2025, not even a year ago, okay, it was known, it was an open secret that Beijing wanted Carney to win. I mean, when I say open secret, I mean the intelligence services made this known during the election. They sent out a report and said, hey, by the way, China's leaning towards Carney, just so everyone's aware. Right? Newsflash, our election is being meddled with. Not even anything that happened during the 2016 election, right, with Trump's ties to Russia. Not on anything on that level. Like actual credible evidence, an investigation that was done, found that there was actual, like, legitimate tampering and social engineering going on from China's side. Right? And if you want the evidence, don't just take it from me. And once again, this is going to be in the script or in the sources list that I post in the episode. But here's a report from the actual agency, which any Canadian can go and read for themselves. Right? There's a quote on here that says, "The information operation targeting Mr. Carney is deliberately amplifying narratives in a coordinated and inauthentic way on WeChat to Chinese audiences, and including those communities living in Canada. The site TF observed large data spikes of what is believed to be coordinated inauthentic behavior on March 10th and 25th in 2025. Specifically, various contrasting narratives were spread on WeChat about Mr. Carney, first amplifying the candidate's stance with the United States, then targeting his experience and credentials." So already, right, and even all the examples that I listed in that other episode regarding China's ties to Canada and how it has infiltrated our country, right, even just the basic overview that I gave that, this on top of everything, that Beijing wanted Carney to win, I mean, I don't understand how this is not front page news. China wanted Carney to win, and now he's making a deal with them. What the fuck are we talking about? Are we serious here? This is the kind of leader that we want? This is the kind of direction that we want the country to head in? Like, not only are we making a deal with this foreign power, this adversary that's actively trying to destroy us from within, but we know for a fact that our leader, the man that we send as a nation to make that deal on behalf of Canadians, was their chosen outcome during our last election? We had a whole investigation about this. Right, whether it was the RCMP or CSIS, they had a whole hearing talking about Chinese interference in our elections. This is an open secret. I don't understand how any of this is just, I don't know, people just have short memories. I'm at a loss for words. as often happens on the show. But because I don't know how else to react. How is this just normal? You know, it's one thing for the whole Trump collusion investigation to come out, and it's a nothing burger. They present no actual credible evidence. And here we have an actual leader who is not only favored to win by the foreign power, but as I said in that previous episode, right, Mark Carney, only like maybe 4 months before the election, right, 4 months before he became a candidate, right, it wasn't even a year, that he went to China, spoke to some officials as he was working for Brookfield, And then what do you know? A week later, Brookfield announces a $250 million loan from a Chinese bank. $250 million. Only a week after Carney was there. That's so strange. Wow, a man with a senior position in an asset firm came to China, and then only not even 2 weeks later, that company had a $250 million loan? What a coincidence. I wonder who spoke to Chinese officials about that. I wonder who brokered those relationships. So in any case, all of that, right? And now apparently we know for a fact they meddled in just like the basic social media coverage, which honestly kind of makes sense because I remember at the time, I think it was actually the day that I was recording the episode, I was just dumbfounded at how much public support there was for this. I was like, there's no fucking way this is real. There's absolutely no way. How could anybody that understands basic facts can trace a timeline? I mean, this is all recorded on Wikipedia. If you go on Mark Carney's Wikipedia page, even the most fucking retarded Canadian can figure this out. Like, China appears 23 times. Wait, do they actually not have the investigation? No way. Hold on. Interference? Oh, I can't spell. Are you serious? There's nothing about the election interference? That's crazy. That's crazy. And there's no entry regarding Wow. In the 2025 Canada federal election page, there's no entry regarding China's role. China doesn't even appear once. If I go to the 2016 US election, sorry, I know this is a side tangent, but that's insane. Russia appears 73 times in the US page. I mean, my God, that's ludicrous. I gotta make a note of that. That's strange. Let me just quickly make a post about that. That's what the fuck? Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second here. Apologies. 1 second. Excellent. Okay. That's fucking weird. It doesn't even appear once. And I have an actual honest to God report from the fucking Privy Council talking about the 45th general election. That's insane. That's crazy. Wow. Okay. That's wild. I would have never expected that. Interesting. All right. So anyways, moving on from that. Okay. Moving on from that, it turns out during this trip to China, yeah, there was there's interference in the social media coverage of the trip, which, as I said, yeah, I was dumbfounded that it could have as much support as it did, because you're literally making a deal with the devil. And that's not even because China's this authoritarian state. It's not even like, forget all that. Even if we dismiss all of it, the human rights violations, everything, they ship fentanyl precursor chemicals to our shores by the hundreds of barrels. Okay, they buy out land and then use it as a speculative asset. They are hurting our housing supply. And if it's not them, then it's their citizens, right? All the foreign investment that's coming in. They have scientists who work as double agents to steal our chemical research, right? Actual viral research, right? Viruses. They stole the Ebola virus and they brought it back right before COVID hit. They stole a sample of Ebola and they brought it back to China for studying right before COVID hit. So we are inadvertently helping their chemical warfare research by doing that, by allowing them to do that. They held our citizens hostage. They held 2 Canadian citizens hostage only a couple years ago, right? In a deal between them and the US and their involvement with Huawei. And this is the person that you want to make it. This is the kind of country you want to make a deal with. I understand seeing the world as it is. I understand that there are people that we have to make uncomfortable deals with, but they're actively hurting you. Like, it's not as if you said, hey, how's about we cut all that shit out, all the police stations that you set up, all the surveillance that you do, all that fuckery. How's about we cut it the fuck out, and then we come to the negotiating table, and then we can think about doing a deal. Right? This is ultimately what's wrong with Carney's China trip. None of that has been resolved. None of it. Absolutely none of it. We had a fucking... I can't believe I didn't mention this last episode. We had a candidate run for a position in Parliament that was saying his opponent should be taken to a Chinese consulate because there was a warrant out for his arrest and an award. A financial award. We had a candidate outwardly say this out in public. Like he felt comfortable saying that to his constituents who were Chinese. Right? He felt that there was nothing wrong with saying that. And when Carney was pressed about it, he said, oh, well, he's apologized. He's not going to be stepping down. This is a man who's a police officer who served his community. He deserves our respect. Right? That's what Carney said. And if you think it's too crazy to believe, well, let me fucking show you the proof. Okay? Is it true that Mark Carney defended an MP candidate that said his opponent should be taken to China for a reward? I can't spell, but I'm trying to type fast. You gotta have some grace. Come on. And look, this is AI, but I'll pull up the CBC article. Here's the headline. Canada election. Carney rolls out housing plan as Liberal candidate under fire for China bounty comment. Yeah, I wasn't fucking joking. This is real. This is real. This is real. Let's see where it appears in the article next. Wait, are you serious? They didn't even talk about the fucking incident? They're just talking about the react. No, I don't want the reaction. I need the actual incident. Come on, Grok. Here it is. Headline from CTV News. Carney won't fire incumbent who suggested people collect Chinese bounty on conservative candidate. Liberal leader Mark Carney said Monday he's sticking with candidate Paul Chang, who suggested people try to claim a Chinese bounty on a conservative candidate. Carney faced a series of questions during a morning housing announcement on Liberal incumbent Paul Chang, and the growing calls for him to be barred from running in the riding of Markham-Unionville. He needs to be deported. You, as a Canadian citizen, do not get to say, especially if you're going for public office, you do not get the right to say that somebody should be taken by a foreign power and a bounty on their head should be collected. You don't get to say that without consequences. I mean, as far as I know, he's still in office. Like, how is it that we can have somebody like that working and running the country to an extent? Oh, he was in office until March. He was preceded by Bob Soroya. My mistake. Wait, hold on. Oh, preceded by. He succeeded by Michael Ma. The reason that I react like that is because Michael Ma he was a conservative candidate for the same riding for Markham Unionville, he flipped fucking sides. He went to the other side of the aisle and joined the Liberals. So he just completely flipped. His allegiances are clearly not to the party, not to the ideology. His allegiances, I mean, what are the chances that the guy before him says that shit, right? That a Canadian citizen should be rounded up and taken to a foreign power and the bounty should be collected? And then the next guy after him is, I flipped sides. I flipped to the Liberals. And Michael Ma has been seen with other Chinese officials and in events where where Chinese officials are. That's very strange. What a strange coincidence. What a strange coinkydink that Michael Ma also has potential ties to China. Immediately after that guy. Okay. So anyways, right, Mark Carney's relationship with China is not new, and Canada's infiltration with China is not new. Or sorry, rather, China's infiltration of Canada. Sorry, I got that mixed up. It's nothing new. It's an open secret for anyone that dares to just, I don't know, read the news for 5 minutes, decipher what's actually being done. Literally, you could just Google this shit and it'll come up. Has there ever been any foreign interference in Canada's elections? You're going to get the first result. These are major headlines, and we're just living and acting as if everything is normal. Look, I'm not asking for people to be jumping off bridges because of this shit. I'm just saying, like, there should be way more outrage at Carney's visit to China. And even if we ignore the social media stuff that was happening, right? Even if we ignore all that, all the attention that it was getting, the praise from China, I mean, that is a hell of a lot of support that he got. Because the focus here now on the story and all the media, all they're talking about, oh, China has an uncomfortable track record with human rights. It's uncomfortable for us to talk about. It's very difficult for us to talk about. And the thing is, that shouldn't be the focus of the story. It's not a matter of it being uncomfortable. What's uncomfortable is the almost incestuous ties that our prime minister, our leader, has to China. That's the uncomfortable part. That's what I'm uncomfortable with. Not that China fucking jails people. Look, my heart goes out to them, but I could give less of a fuck. Realistically. Right? We have no control over what China does. They're going to do whatever the fuck they want to do. That's how that country operates. They have a party in power, and they stick with their own, right? And they do their own thing. Fine. Whatever. We have our own problems here. Our leader, who has questionable ties to China, should not be making fucking deals with them at all. You shouldn't be expanding on any of their capacity to fuck with us or to be intertwined with us in any way, shape, or form. Keep them at an arm's length. Figure it out. Find another way. That's your fucking job, is to advocate on behalf of Canadians. Do your job. Not whatever this is. Not this enrichment of yourself and your friends. Not this weird intelligence spy shit where some of the people in your own party. I mean, Michael Ma was there to meet the Chinese. Of all the people that you would want to not be around you during that meeting, why would it be the guy, right? Sorry, of all the people you would want around you, why would you invite the guy that just walked across the party aisle? He just betrayed his party and his constituents, right? The people that voted him as a conservative are ticked off and they've been protesting. He doesn't give a shit. Nothing's going to happen, right? Because his line is, I've just wanted the success for Canada. Even if you look at the way that Michael Ma left the party, it is absolutely incredible. You know what? I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but let me just say this, okay? During the time when Michael Ma was leaving the Conservative Party and going over to the Liberals, here was the timeline. He was at the Conservative Christmas party. There was a secret Santa that they did. Michael Ma didn't give any gifts. But the guy who did give him a gift, who was his secret Santa, he blabbed about it. He's like, yo, what the fuck? I went out and got you this gift, and literally the day before, like the day of that you were at the party, I think it must have been either the same night or no, it was the night after. The night after was the Liberal Party where they had the Christmas party, right? And Michael Ma was there, not even 24 hours after. I mean, of all the times you pick to go over to the next side, that has got to be the biggest fuck you ever. You're there at the Conservative Party pretending that you're buddy-buddy with everyone, that you get along, you're part of the team, you're in it to win it, fuck the Liberals, right? All that, right? You're there as a show of solidarity. And literally the next day, not even 24 hours later, you're with the opposition, getting them one position closer, one seat closer to a majority government. Insane. And that amount of flip-flopping is weird. Okay, you don't make huge political leaps in your 50s. You're kind of set in your ways by then. Or however the fuck old he is. How old is this guy? He's not even a Canadian citizen. He was born in Hong Kong. The man was born in Hong Kong. Shouldn't even be in office in the first place. If you're not Canadian born, as I've said on the show multiple times, if you're not Canadian born, you should not have the legal right to run for office. If you were not born in Canada, you should not be allowed to be in office. Honestly, maybe even work for the government. It should really only be Canadians. Even the lowly desk clerk. Maybe. I'll have to give that some thought. But in any case, look. I mean, that guy flip-flops, and then he's also there for the deal in China. Rob Ford wasn't even at the deal in China. The guy who got the premier of Ontario, who got fucked over more than anybody, because part of the deal was getting all these EVs to come into Canada that are going to fuck up the Ontario auto market. And a lot of those people voted for Rob Ford. I hope I'm not confusing them. It's Rob Ford, right? Not Doug. Oh, Jesus Christ. Wait, hold on. Doug Ford. Oh, I miss Rob too much. That was a slip. Oh, Rob Ford. What a legend. What a legend. You know that he said that he had enough pussy to eat at home? My mayor said that once. The mayor of Toronto, quite literally, I mean, there's footage of this. You can find it. He was talking in reference to some woman. She had some kind of comment, and he's like, no, thanks. I have plenty to eat at home. What a baller. I mean, absolutely disgusting thing to say for a politician. I get that. I'm I'm not ignoring it, but what a fucking beauty. What a man. Smoked crack, struck down in his prime. Look at him. Look at that guy. God, the life he led. Oh, I guess that's the Jimmy Kimmel. What a legend, dude. What a bowling ball of a man. That guy was crazy. That guy was like our Trump. Just letting it fly. Oh, man. Aura. Just nothing but aura. This fucking guy. Anyways, Doug Ford. Back on topic. Doug Ford. Our premier who got fucked the most on the China deal. He wasn't even in China. He wasn't familiar. He didn't know what was happening. I mean, I guess Carney did that on purpose. Because he's like, all right, well, I don't want this guy around me. If I'm just going to fuck his shit up, I probably don't want him around me. It's good that he's back home. And, yeah, why would you make that deal? Why would you make that deal? It makes no sense. It doesn't bring anyone closer to seeing Canada live up to its standards. It doesn't really do anything for us, realistically. Oh, they buy more of our soybeans. Wow, so great. And our canola oil or whatever the fuck. Great. Now we have to put in Chinese EVs on the market. Now we have fucking drones just driving around for China. That's great. If they can put surveillance shit in a fucking app, in a social media app, I bet you my life that they could put it in a car. Okay, especially a car, if they have self-driving capabilities, they put all that LiDAR and all those cameras on them, right? If it's not LiDAR, they use something else, but whatever. Whatever tech they use. You don't think that they're going to try to snoop? You know, especially for anyone that lives around the border with the US. Isn't that strange? They strike up a deal with the neighbor to America, the single largest economy and military power on the planet. And they're like, fuck it, just take these EVs, take these 49,000 fucking autonomous drones into your country. And in the last episode, I'll stop preaching about this because the China deal is, you know, it's what's said and done. It's in stone. Not much that can be done. But the Canadian Army had to throw away their Chinese drones, and that made like I think 70 or 80% of their stock. So like millions of dollars just in the fucking trash because they realized, hey, the chances of this actually being hacked into by the Chinese is not zero. So maybe just to remove all risk, we should just get rid of all of them. And if they had that with drones, they're going to have that with their cars. There's no fucking way. Are you kidding me? The one thing that China is infamous for? Come on. Let's not be naive here. Well, we have to wait for a fucking Chinese Snowden to come out like 5 years after the fact when the program's already started and we're dealing with the fucking consequences? Fuck no. And we're not going to have a Chinese Snowden. It's not going to happen. Oh, all right, back to my notes. And the other thing that I will add is during this visit, during the China visit, this is the last point I'll make about it. There was a line that some politicians decided to use, whether it was the MPs or the representatives that were there. They said that they're going into the Chinese deal with eyes wide open. Eyes wide open, guys. They're going into it. Eyes fucking ears open, eyes wide open. And I'm only saying that for emphasis because like it was actually incredible. The footage of our representatives looking like they're just stunned, looking at the camera as if they're a fucking hostage, just straight deadpanning it, or fumbling over their words, their mind racing, trying to figure out the most, like, not only do they have to do that diplomatically in Canada, if a word slips, if they use the wrong lingo, whatever, their head's not going to get cut off. But they're in fucking China. Okay? They play around differently there. Okay? They have a different game that they play. You got to toe the party line. Okay? So our representatives just started, they just kept saying, eyes wide open. We're going into it, eyes wide open. Right? And so finally, when a Canadian journalist has an opportunity to ask someone, what does that actually mean? You know, what is it that you're saying when you say eyes wide open? Because from our perspective, you know, the people that are here back home, China's been fucking with us for a while. So how are you gonna how are you gonna square that circle? How do you make sense of that? Right? And this clip, oh my god, this is amazing. Just give this a listen.
I listened to Minister Champagne just a moment ago talk about eyes wide open. I heard the Prime Minister on multiple occasions say that there will be guardrails to this relationship as we try to amplify trade with China. I never heard anyone specify what they are. Minister, what are the guardrails?
Thanks, you too. Well, if you look at China, our second largest trading partner, it's very important that we continue to engage with China. Very successful trip. We've been working with them, to negotiate agriculture access. In fact, over $7 billion of agriculture access for canola, for seafood, for beef. In fact, our very first shipment of beef is already out there now. Canola's out there as well. And so it's very important that we continue to open up access for our producers, for our workers, but also about EVs. That's very important as well. Especially being an MP in Ontario, speaking to workers. Stellantis is in my riding, 3,000 people laid off. Speaking to those workers, they asked me, they just say, we want to build cars. We don't care who we build them for. We just want to build cars. And so this is very important in terms of...
Okay. this word salad, he goes on and on and on and on and on. It's unavoidable. The whole time. I'll post the link. It'll be in the sources. You can listen to it yourself, but I just can't fucking sit here and be bothered to listen to the whole thing. At no point does he talk or mention anything regarding the actual barriers or, I don't know, guardrails, right, as she said, to the China deal. You know, what is there a red line? If we find out they have one spy, is that going to be a problem? What about 2 spies? What about 3? Maybe 5, 6, you know, because China can be a little sneaky. Okay, they can be a little sneaky sometimes. Just a little bit sneaky. But like, what are they, right? What are the guardrails? What are the actual stopgap measures to ensure that they're not fucking with us? And this guy couldn't come up with anything. Just 2 minutes straight fucking blabbering about how great the deal is and what it's going to do for the economy and so on and so forth. Great. Thanks, asshole. That wasn't the fucking question. But they're avoiding it. They're avoiding it because they don't want to come out and say the truth, right? It's funny. They keep saying eyes wide open. It's as if they're trying to manifest this idea. If we just say it enough times, if we mean it with our chest, if we believe in it, like we believed in Santa Claus, if we believe in it, we'll make it real. Bro, this is not fucking make-believe. This isn't drama class. You have millions of people's lives that are going to be affected by this, and you're up filibustering on live national television? I mean, I get it, fine. I guess that's his job, but how do you sleep at night? All of these people, they know exactly what China has done to Canada. They're not ignorant to it. They'll get mail from their constituents. They'll see it on their feed. You know, they'll ask their team, hey, how's our social media presence doing? Oh, well, you still have a lot of people commenting about this and that. Like, there's no way they don't interact with that. You have to be living in a completely separate headspace to, like, have the blinders on so fucking hard that you don't understand why a deal with China is actually super duper fucking bad. If I just put it in the simplest terms for anyone to understand, super duper bad, okay? And if they do have these blinders on, and if that is true, that they're just so ignorant to it, what are you doing in government? And how can you come out and say your eyes wide open? Guys, we're eyes wide open, guys. We're fucking eyes wide open. We see everything. Just I can't help but laugh at the ridiculousness. Saying eyes wide open. Yeah, but no guardrails. No guardrails to the deal, no set red line, nothing like that. Okay, sure. Anyways, moving on. That's how the China deal is going. And we're returning to Parliament soon enough. This coming Monday, I believe. So questioning period is going to be very fun to see just how these people fucking squirm. How they absolutely just are unable to answer the question at all. Because for anyone that actually watches questioning period or even just the short clips that come out every day, that's all it is. The Conservatives just come up to the board and sure, they'll use hyperbole, they'll use parliamentary language, some fluff, but for the most part, it's just, look, we have an honest question. When are you going to do... No, first of all, why did you say what you did? When are you going to do what you said you would do? Why aren't you doing the things that you said you would do? That's it. It's three categories of questions that the Conservatives ask. And the reason I say that, the reason that I generalize this is not because I have a hard-on for them and I want them to win. I have a lot of disagreements with the Conservative Party of Canada. Right? And in a lot of ways, I really don't think they're going as hard enough as they should, especially with how the Liberals have been taking the majority of their policies, right, that they advocated for during the general, or the federal election, rather. And they're not going hard enough. The Liberals took all these policies, adopted them as their own, and the Conservatives are, as a result, they're kind of deflated. They're like, what do we do? You go harder. right? The liberals say we're going to get rid of 10,000, 20,000, however many thousand people. You say you're going to get rid of 1 million because that's what needs to happen. The liberals say we're going to cut the deficit by 10%, 15%, 25%. You say you're going to cut it by half. And you mean it and you back it up. That's the only way that they can win. That is the only way that they can be relevant. Otherwise, they're just like the liberals. If the liberals can get away doing with what the Conservative Party has been talking about for years, and the Conservative Party is just left to rot, they're just liberals. they're spiritually liberal if they can get away with that. But I'm looking forward to seeing how Parliament goes with the China questions. That's going to be entertaining to see. That's going to be very entertaining to see. So, in any case, we'll move on to the next story. Carney decided to, as I said at the beginning of the show, do a speed run. He decided to do a speed run across the most oppressive countries on this planet, which is very, very strange. Very, very strange choice of speed run. You know, most people, they play some Sonic, you know, maybe some Resident Evil. But Carney decides to do this with his spare time. And so they've agreed to a number of things with Qatar. It's not nearly as deep as it is with China. The feeling that I got from seeing all of the announcements and everything they talked about and reading the pressers, I basically got the impression that they're making certain concessions regarding the economy, so opening up more trade, lessening the barriers with taxes, right, reducing them. Security cooperation on the FIFA World Cup, because Qatar, you know, only recently, pretty sure they were the last host actually, of the World Cup. There was a joint Canada-Qatar Commission on Economic, Commercial, and Technical Cooperation that was established via MOU. That's basically an IOU. That's a note that says, we will start this, right? So just a lot of words. Defense security cooperation framework that was launched, including negotiations on a framework for military and security expertise exchange, and the establishment of a Canadian Defense Attaché office in Doha to boost defense sector exports and collaboration. They agreed to expand the air services under the Canadian-Qatar Air Transport Agreement, increasing flights and connectivity to support tourism, business travel, and trade. So basically, it was just, let's get our countries together. Let's get them closer. Just a little bit closer. Right? So just further integration with Qatar along various economic, security, and cultural lines. Now, there was one thing that stuck out. I mean, many things, but one of them was how Carney said that Canadians, you know, it's good when we are able to integrate as a people other cultures into our nation, because we learn from one another. We only benefit each other, right? This is what he said. Hear him in his own words.
When the people of different countries are familiar with each other's cultures and perspectives, they're enriched and they trust each other more. They also want to do more together, to build together. And to that end, Canada and Qatar are strengthening our people-to-people ties and our cultural ties. This year, Qatar begins its year of culture, building lasting relationships through cultural, educational, business, and creative exchanges. Canada, to further these efforts, will expand our air transport agreement to increase direct flights to this country. Will also lead to more tourism and business between our nations. Finally, in the spirit of cultural exchange, I've extended an invitation to His Highness to visit Canada as our two countries face off in our first, not sure face-off, kickoff, in our first ever World Cup match this June in Vancouver. On that note, I also want to thank
Just in time. Sorry, just had to run off for a second. For those unfamiliar, okay, Qatar. Sorry, I've been mispronouncing this whole time. It's not Qatar. It's Qatar. Qatar is, well, they treat women and minorities and gays different than Canada. Most likely because Sharia law is a thing there. It's a main source of Qatari legislation, or so Wikipedia says. Right, and this was no more plain to see than during the FIFA World Cup when they hosted, when you could see streamers go there and realize, oh, these people have a different culture. Right? I mean, fuck it. Let's see if we can find a clip. FIFA World Cup, Qatar. Right? Pride flag. Oh, wait, no. I remember, yeah, they made a special exception. Yes. Yes, I remember they made a very special exception. Yeah. Qatari officials had also indicated a willingness to allow alcohol in fan zones at the 2022 World Cup. Yeah, they don't feel too good about alcohol or women or gays. And fine, don't take my word for it. I will gladly walk you through it. Here's a National Post column that says, quote, Qatar is nothing like Canada or the United States. Yet both of our countries' leaders have been cozying up to it. Qatar was accused of abusing migrant workers when it hosted the 2022 FIFA Men's World Cup. It arrested Abdullah Ibais, I hope I pronounced that right, a media manager for the Qatari World Cup Organization Committee, after he started investigating worker complaints. Ibais spent 3 years in a Doha prison and alleges he was physically assaulted and kept in complete darkness and freezing temperatures. That's number one. Number two, it also abused gay Qataris. I guess you pronounce that because it's Qatar. Qataris? That's weird. Qataris, and then recruited them, promising safety from physical torture in exchange for helping authorities track down other gay individuals in the country. I was not about to read the acronym. They're gay. You know exactly what I mean. Okay, I'm not reading that fucking alphabet soup bullshit. In 2022, Qatar claimed that all were welcome at the sporting event, but made it clear that public displays of affection were frowned upon. Also, more importantly, right, this is just the social stuff. Fine, whatever. Okay, so we're making a deal that treats women, we're making a deal with a country that treats women and gays badly. Okay, and big whoop, right? Here's the other part, for those that don't know, for the listeners at home. Qatar shelters Hamas and has refused to close its office in Doha. Hamas leaders live there in luxury. In 2019, Hamas then political chief Ismail Haniyeh reportedly told Qatar's foreign minister that Doha was Hamas's main artery for fundraising. We are making a deal with a country that literally harbors terrorists, that is actively in a war with another country which we are funding, Israel. I mean, this is the equivalent of Carney going to Russia to make a deal in the middle of the Ukraine war. I understand that Hamas's presence in Israel, or rather in Palestine, is not all that strong at this point. And the Russia example may not be a one-to-one match, but spiritually, it's the same fucking thing. You're literally going to the person who is enabling the conflict, and you're making a deal with them. Jesus fucking Christ. I don't... When I said that Carney is on a speed run to visit the world's worst nations to make deals with, I meant that literally. I wasn't... That's not hyperbole. I know I like to blow things up on the show sometimes for comedic effect, but that is genuinely real. Of all the countries that he could have fucking picked, I mean, Jesus Christ, North Korea wasn't available? They would have been a better pick than fucking China. They would have, because we know that North Korea doesn't do shit. What, they have some hackers that occasionally steal data from fucking AshleyMadison.com? Sony? Or what have you? Oh, cool, they're scamming some of our grandmas out of a couple of $1,000s. Great, at least they're not shipping fucking fentanyl to our shores. At least they're not popping up police stations, because North Korea is poor. They're poor. The one thing they're good for is coal. They ship a ton of coal to China. Maybe we could have made a deal for that, but Carney's got too big of a fucking green thumb, just like the last guy. Anyways, that deal would never happen, but I'm just saying as an example, it's like, really? You picked fucking Qatar and China? Really? You couldn't, like, what? Was fucking Iran not available? I don't understand. Anyways, the article goes on, quote, in 2017, Trump called Qatar a funder of terrorism at a very high level. But by his second term, he was treating Qatar as an indispensable ally. It couldn't have hurt that it gave him a $200 million jet. And in November, Trump designated the Muslim Brotherhood chapters in Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon as a terrorist entity, but omitted the chapter in Qatar. That's amazing. And here's another fucking tidbit for you. You want to know how bad Qatar is, right? For Canadians and for Canadian influence? This is the travel advisory that the federal government of Canada has to Qatar. Exercise a high degree of caution because of terrorism, safety and security, tensions in the Middle East, terrorism, crime, gay people, women, demonstrations, desert excursions. It goes on. It goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read it all, but Jesus fucking Christ, like I said, if of all the countries you could have picked, yeah, I'm a little stun locked. It gets better. It gets way fucking better. Okay, you guys don't even know. I have the lowdown. Okay, this was only last year. So the same asset management firm that our dear leader Carney worked for, right, Brookfield, they launched a $20 billion AI infrastructure joint venture with Qatar. This article is dated December. It's fucking January. It's been less than 2 months since Brookfield and Qatar have launched this initiative. Like I said, to the value of $20 billion. Billion with a B. I'm just saying, isn't it a little strange? Isn't it a little strange that within a year's time, both China and Qatar somehow have ties to Brookfield and Carney? It's kind of weird. Right? Is anybody going to admit that this is kind of fucking weird? Why isn't our national media pressing him on this? Isn't it weird that Brookfield has direct financial ties to both of the countries? It's not as if they fucking set up a donut shop. They invested $250 million into China, into a Chinese bank, right? They have a loan. $250 million they got from a Chinese bank. That's money they're going to have to pay back with interest. They are effectively making an investment using Chinese money. And on top of that, they have a deal to help develop artificial intelligence in Qatar to the tune of $20 billion only a month before Carney goes to Qatar. And guess what? One of the things that they talked about was, Just guess. Of all the things that Mr. Carney and Mr. Qatar, whatever the fucking leader's name is, I don't give a fuck, right? I don't care to know. I probably should. It's due diligence. You know what? Okay. Let's drop the ego for a second. Let me get that guy's name. I might as well know thy enemy, right? Know thine enemy. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, so bear with me here. Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. I think I should... I fucking aced that shit. Let's go. Let's fucking go. This is who Mr. Carney was making the deal with. Like, this... Of all the people that he could have made the deal with, Mr. Carney decided that, hey, maybe I should make the deal with the leader of the country which my ex-company invested $20 billion with. Wouldn't that be a great idea? I mean, I don't know how conflict of interest is just not the headline every single day since this visit. Because, you know, the interesting thing about Carney's visit, and I think this was deliberate, I think that, like, from my understanding, right, because there's no way to actually know this for a fact, but my analysis on it is that this happened in a 1-2 punch. Really, there were 4 punches, right? The first punch is going to China, right, dealing with the media storm of that, going to Qatar, dealing with the media storm of that, going to the WEF, which we'll get to later in the show, going to the WEF, making that speech, the speech heard round the world. Oh my God, we live in a new world. Oh my God, Mr. Carney, you've ushered in a new world. Holy shit! Oh fucking wow! I see in 4D now. My eyes are open. My eyes are open, Mr. Carney. I see it. And then he comes back home, and then he has that speech in Quebec. And at every step of the way, he's just getting blown. He's getting blown by the media, giving the most fucking softball questions. Not asking anything about Brookfield. Brookfield hasn't come up a single fucking time. None of these journalists have the balls, the courage to speak up and ask him, hey, it's kind of weird how the asset management company who has a global presence that you worked for not even a year ago as like one of the top guys. What was his position in Brookfield? I should know this. I really should know this off the top of my head. But I feel like it doesn't even fucking matter. It doesn't matter what position he played in. He could have been a fucking secretary. And it would still be a fucking problem. He's a vice chair. Vice chair at Brookfield. I mean, it doesn't get higher than that unless you're the fucking top guy. Second, third, fourth, however many, fifth fucking in command. Right? Nobody's asking him about this. Isn't this incredible? How none of our media... You know what? This is why... I'm going to pull this up. This is exactly why I post this. Okay? This is exactly why I say corporate journalists are fucking scumbags. Right? In some ways, in the way that they behave, they're worse than that. Okay? These people deserve everything that they get for their industry being cratered into the fucking basement. Into the earth. Right? This is exactly why I post. Always bully them. Apologies for the ear rape. I guess I should have said this is going to be loud. But this is exactly why I say that. Because it's their fucking job. I shouldn't have to be sitting here at fucking 2 a.m. talking about this. I shouldn't have to be doing this. Nobody should be having to do this. We shouldn't have any concerns like this with our media. They should be doing their fucking jobs, holding the powerful to account. But they're willfully blind to this. I mean, I've made the argument, like, fine, maybe the government is just so incompetent that their blinders are up and they can't understand any of this and they can't see anything wrong with what they're doing. Even if that was the case, even if we lived in that kind of reality where they were that retarded, the problem is that now you're too retarded to run the country. Now you've reached a level of retardation that you can't come back from. You've gone full retard. Okay, the government's gone full retard if that's the case. But that can't be the case, because nobody's that retarded. Right, except that one guy in Tropic Thunder. But nobody's that retarded. And the news media, they're tapped in just like the politicians are. They have the people inside the government that they talk to, all their confidential sources. They have people on the ground. They have entire departments. There's a news wire that they pay attention to. They are in this shit. They know what's going on. And they're not asking these questions. They're not doing their fucking job. If these people were actually talking on the news about what's wrong with our country and why it is the way it is, we wouldn't be in this predicament. If both the government and the news just did their fucking jobs, we wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't be paying astronomical prices for rent to live in a fucking shoebox. We wouldn't have millions of Indians coming into our country under unknown pretenses half the fucking time, making the housing supply shrink, the availability to jobs just completely go away, the unemployment rise. Our debt to GDP ratio is fucking skyrocketing. We're hitting record deficits. $90 billion fucking deficit last year, I'm pretty sure. Right? Canada federal deficit. What's it at right now? It's at 60 billion. A cool 60 bill. $60 billion for the year of 2024. The previous year, it was 35. We are doubling our debt. We are in crisis. The Prime Minister's, the budget office, right? The budget, the office that oversees the budget and the planning, right? They came out and they said, this is untenable. There is no turning back from this if we continue on this path. They sounded the alarm. They came out and they said, this is not sustainable. This way of life in Canada is not working. We need to right this ship around, and not in a soft and gentle way of, oh, we'll just cut a couple jobs. We'll remove people from office. We'll, maybe cut back on the subs. No. We're talking about a fundamental remaking of the nation. We're talking about a reset button, an actual hard reset button. And Carney's going around making deals with the devil. Two of the devils. Two devils. Great. The fucking back to back. So that's why I say all that shit about journalists. If they actually did their fucking jobs, if they actually held these people's feet to the fire, we wouldn't be in this predicament. So fuck them. Fuck corporate journalists. Fuck corporate media outlets. I appreciate the work you guys do because now I have sources that I can cite and back up my shit with, but fuck you. Fuck you for everything that you've done to this country. I just want to get that up before I move on to the next one. So Qatar just happens to, right, back to Qatar, they happen to make a $20 billion AI deal only a month before Carney visits. Strange fucking coincidence. But they have a joint statement that they make with the leader of Qatar. So they planned this. Carney knew about this well ahead of time, right? They're committing to accelerated two-way investment and collaboration across AI, quantum computing, aerospace, defense technologies, advanced manufacturing, agriculture, and agri-food. Whatever the fuck agri-food is. Here's a quote from that Reuters article regarding the launch. The Gulf country's $526 billion sovereign wealth fund said on Monday it was setting up its own national AI company, QAI, following in the steps of regional peers the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia as they invest to become global AI hubs outside of the US and China. Great. So we're helping fucking Qatar start up an AI hub. Great. That's fucking awesome. Record high food bank usage in Canada. Immigration, like deportations, are not as nearly as high as they should be. Housing is a problem. We have tens of thousands of people, literally tens of thousands of people that have died waiting for healthcare. Just waiting. The stat that I'll show you throughout the show later on, it's 100,000 people that have died since 2018. That is not hyperbole. That is from a news source based on Canadian government statistics. 100,000 people, right? Let me repeat that. 100,000 people in Canada have died waiting for medical care since 2018. In 8 years. And this is what our Prime Minister is doing. right? Our country needs to be completely changed from the ground up in many different ways, in many different institutions. And this guy's going around making deals with China and Qatar. And we're supposed to praise him like he's the fucking second coming of Jesus because what? He has potential financial ties. He stands to gain from this personally, from all these deals that he's making, right? Because as I said before, once Carney leaves the position of prime minister, which he will eventually, he's not going to be the supreme leader of Canada for long, right? Eventually they all do leave, no matter how many times they get reelected. He's going to have his Brookfield shares back. And any bonus, any return on investment that Brookfield has made on their shares until that time, right? Any gains that they have made until that time, Carney's going to get all of that. And as vice chair, he literally has hundreds of millions of dollars worth of shares. Literally hundreds of millions of dollars. Let me pull up the actual number. What is the estimated value of Mark Carney's shares in Brookfield? Oh, apologies. Not hundreds of millions. 6.8 million. My mistake. Sorry. It's only 6.8. A little bit of hyperbole. But I'm glad we could fact check it. The guy has 200,000 shares. Sorry, 400,000 shares. He has just over 400,000 shares. And who knows how much they'll increase. Right now, they're worth 7 million. Sorry, back then, right? When you put them in a blind trust, they were worth 7 million. Now, how much are they worth? How much will they be worth in 5 years, in 10 years, right? When these deals actually start to kick in and you see some economic action in these zones. Not in Canada, but in Brookfield's investments. Right? And how much are they going to be worth then? Guarantee you it's going to be a hell of a lot more than 7 mil. And so with this continued 1-2 punch, right? 4 punch, sure. Fucking China, Qatar, WEF, and then his speech in Quebec. The next stop on Carney's campaign is, of course, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. You know, it's funny. They have this, I think I mentioned it before, they have this Twitter account that watches the activity of pizza places around the Pentagon. Because whenever like a big event is going to happen, right, all those people in the Pentagon, the DOD, all that in America, they hunker down, they order takeout, and they're there for hours. Right? They're there late overnight. And somebody figured out that you could actually track when these places get active, when they have a high volume of orders, because Google Maps has this activity, right? If I just pull up Google Maps here, right, I type in Pentagon, let's say pizza. So what do we got? What's a cheap tip? Oh, perfect. Wisebox. Right, what's their activity? Oh, I guess it's not going to show it here. This isn't the best illustrator. Let me just pull up the actual account. I believe it's called Pizza Tracker. Yep. Oh, I just had it. Oh, there it is. Pentagon Pizza Tracker. Apologies, guys. I thought it would come up in the first result. I don't know why it didn't. Yeah, it goes crazy. They keep track of them. It's called Pizza Watch. There it is. Dokon 4. They even have fucking names for it. Incredible. I think this is linked to Polymarket somehow. Like people help like bet if anything's gonna happen. And they have like even a meter from nothing ever happens to it happened. Yeah, you could just see it live. You can just see it live. Kind of forgot where I was going with this. Apologies. I got a little bit sidetracked there. But in any case, Carney's trip to the WEF. I mean, what a speech. What a speech that was. People were just absolutely, I mean, nothing short of actually blowing him. The amount of praise that I saw for this speech, and I understand why I got a lot of praise. I'm not ignorant to that fact. He basically said, in not so many words, speech is around 20 minutes. You can find it if you Google it. In not so many words, he basically says the rules-based world order is gone. And the reason that it's gone is not because of some monumental act, but because we've all realized that it's a matter of pretending that it's there. In the same way how during communism, the evilness of the regime, it wasn't necessarily in just like the secret police and how information was kept from people, the violent acts that were perpetrated against people, the neighbors turning on each other. That was there, sure. But it was kind of in the same tone of like the banality of evil. It was evil that was perpetrated through the most basic actions. And the example that he used is from a Czech dissident by the name of Václav Havel, or maybe Václav Havel. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who essentially wrote about an example where the way that communism was perpetrated in a lot of ways was through its symbols and the way that people spoke. And he used the example of a shopkeeper that put out a sign outside of his store that says "Workers of the World Unite," which is one of the main communist credos, right? Workers of the World Unite. But the day that he doesn't put that sign outside of his store, right? The day that he doesn't display that sign, the day that he stops outwardly professing his belief for the system, that's the day when communism starts to change. That's the day when there's a chink in their armor. When people stop pretending to believe in a system and they start living by another one, that's when actual change happens. Right? But the thing is, with a system like that, because every other shopkeeper around you persists, because they put out their sign, because they have their pledge of allegiance, right, that they put on display for everyone to see, it makes it almost impossible for anyone to actually act out. And it takes the first person, right? The implication here is that the first person that does that, or the first people to do that, are the brave ones. That's what it implies. And the whole system can only be taken down when all the signs are down. So Carney placed himself in that metaphor as the guy saying, hey guys, guess what? Fuck America. Fuck China. Fuck Russia. Not in a hateful way, but just to say like, yeah, that world order, we understand that it exists, but we're done playing by those rules. We're going to play by different rules. We're going to secure other trade allegiances. We're going to secure other deals with other countries. And we're not going to be as reliant on you, America and China and Russia. We're not going to be doing that. Right? Except Carney actually signed a deal with China, so it doesn't fucking, like this metaphor, all this symbolism that he used, right? It's nice and pretty to listen to him speak, but when you actually read the speech, you're like, no, you're an actual fucking idiot. He's quoting someone who stood up against communism, and Carney literally, not even a week before making this speech, made a deal with China, a communist power. Look, I understand they're not full communist. They have a capitalist economy to an extent, but the state rules above all. If that's not communism, I don't know what is. Okay, they got their own flavor. They got their own type. But it's the Chinese Communist Party. They literally call themselves communists. Okay? To what extent they actually embody the beliefs and whether it's Leninism, Trotskyism, that's a debate for another day. But the point is, they're fucking commies. They're communists. That's all we need to know. And Carney tried to invoke the words of someone who was an anti-communist, a communist survivor, during his speech. I mean, how fucking backwards does that get? I don't understand. And the funnier thing is, right? The funnier thing is with him invoking the words of Václav Havel in that speech, the funnier thing is that his government tries to do the exact same fucking thing to everybody here in Canada. Anybody that speaks out, especially during COVID, anybody that spoke out against the vaccine, anybody that spoke out against the mandates, anybody that spoke in favor of the Freedom Convoy, any concerns that people might have with the reaction to the vaccine, maybe how the testing was done or what have you, they were labeled as the other. Justin Trudeau literally went on Quebec national television and talked openly about how there's a section of the population that are anti-vax. And not just that, he also said, oh, some of them are racists, some of them are sexists. And do we tolerate these people? Those were his own words during COVID. Right? You know what? I'll gladly look this up because this is worth revisiting.
Des gens qui sont en train d'hésiter un petit peu, on va continuer d'essayer de les convaincre, mais il y a aussi des
No, I need one with captions. Oh, there we go.
On en connaît tous des gens qui sont en train d'hésiter un petit peu, on va continuer d'essayer de les convaincre, mais il y a aussi des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination. Qui sont extrémistes. Qui croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. C'est un petit groupe, mais qui prend de la place. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère ces gens-là ou est-ce qu'on dit, ben, voyons, la plupart des gens...
Tolerate these people. Do we tolerate these people? That's what Trudeau said on national television in Quebec during COVID. Do we tolerate the people that disagree with the mandates? Label them as sexists and racists and homophobes? Like, who the fuck are you to put that label on me? Fuck you. Why do you just assume, or why are you insinuating that these people are like that? That everyone who disagrees with mandates is a horrible person? They're morally in the wrong? Who the fuck gave you that authority? You don't fucking know me. You don't know my friends, my family, whoever else disagrees. Like, what the fuck? Where do you get off saying shit like that? So the fact that Carney tried to invoke this anti-commie philosopher saying that, no, the only time that these regimes fall, the only time that they can is when somebody speaks up. And until then, everyone is just placing that sign outside their store. They're just complying. But they're living a lie. Really? You're going to say that after what your fucking government did, what your government continues to do? Any politician, anybody of note that speaks out against abortion, against the COVID mandates, they're ushered out of polite society in Canada. They're dismissed. We don't have a lot of voices on the side that are just going out and saying, hey, maybe the mandates weren't a great idea. Maybe the carbon tax isn't a great idea. You're labeled as a fucking misogynist, as a sexist, as a racist, as an anti-climate activist, as an anti-vaxxer. You get this label in Canada. And it's coming from upon high. It's coming from the government because this is their messaging. This is their messaging. We believe trans women are women. What are you going to do about it? We believe in land declarations. Right? Or whatever the fuck, whatever it is that they do at the beginning of every ceremony. Right? To the point where the natives are actually now asking for the land back. Great. That was a great fucking idea. But anyways, this lie that we're sold of these virtues that we have to uphold in Canada, anybody that doesn't abide by them in public life, if you're known, right? If you're a news personality that got a sudden type of opinion, you're getting fired. If you work for a news agency that doesn't align with that politically, you're getting fired. You're getting let out the back door. Or they will keep you and they will make sure that you fade into irrelevance. So the fact that Carney wants to invoke an anti-communist leader who is speaking out exactly against the things that his government has done to people, his own party has done to people, I don't, like, anybody with a fucking brain cell, with 2 brain cells, just look up who this guy was, what he wrote about, and what he said. Not to mention, okay, this is the fucking cherry on top. If Carney had actually read what this man had said, he would have found this quote. He would have found this lovely quote, which, let me read, quote, "A state that ignores the will and the rights of its citizens can offer no guarantee that it will respect the will and the right of other peoples, nations, and states. A state that refuses its citizens their right to public supervision of the exercise of power will not be susceptible to international supervision. A state that denies its citizens their basic rights becomes a danger to its neighbors as well. Internal arbitrary rule will be reflected in arbitrary external relations." He's talking about communist states. Everything that people are saying that is wrong with making a deal with China, this is it. If they don't respect their own fucking people, how do you expect them to respect you? How does Carney, like, if we're living in the real world, right? Throughout the whole speech at the WEF, he's saying, oh, we live in a real world of evils that we have to acknowledge, right? If you acknowledge that reality, that China does real bad shit to its people, just putting it as plainly as possible, right? That's their MO towards their citizens. They do a lot of bad shit to people. They surveil them 24/7. There's a social credit score. If you don't comply, you'll be disappeared. If they are willing to do that to their own people, what makes you think they're going to honor their deal? What makes you think they're not going to fuck with you? If that's what they're willing to do to their own citizens, what do you think they're going to do to you? You're not even a citizen. So, look, the fact that he did this, absolutely fucking mind-blowing. That he didn't have a staffer that he assigned, like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna quote this guy. Can you tell me what else he wrote? Maybe, like, there's some communication issues or, like, just incongruency with ideas. Maybe there's just something that he really vehemently disagreed with me on that I probably shouldn't quote him so that it doesn't bring it up. Like, he had nobody to fucking tell him this. Did he just, like, pick this book up during his time at Harvard? One day when he was smoking weed and he read it and this is the only passage that he forgot? I don't understand how you can possibly make a blunder like that. That's crazy. Dude, that's like the equivalent of Trump taking a Hitler quote out of context, and it was something that he said about smokers, or the fact that he was a vegetarian, or that he loved dogs, or painting. Right? None of the stuff that Hitler is, like, actually known for. Just a little tidbit. And just completely forgot, like, hey, by the way, there's a glaring issue here. Maybe I shouldn't fucking use him as a source. I can't believe that. But also, I love it because it makes it so much easier. A random account on Twitter was able to spot that. Some random dude was able to just be like, hey, what else has this guy said? Maybe it's actually completely in disagreement with what this man is doing. And it is. It is in complete disagreement. And here's another fucking fun fact. During the speech, Carney said, quote, "A country that cannot feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. When the ruler no longer protects you, you must protect yourself." Yeah, I've said this on the show multiple times. Canada's going through record high food bank use. We had like 4 million visits to the Daily Bread food bank last year alone. 4 million visits. Sure, those are recurring and people are going on and on and on, but the fact that we have record high food bank usage in Canada is kind of fucking concerning. We have the highest food inflation rate out of all the G7 countries. The highest. Coffee is up like 400% in tariffs, or sorry, in inflation. I know that for a fact. I used to buy this espresso coffee This pack that used to cost $2.50. It was so cheap that I could afford to just hoard it. And the reason that I hoarded it is because like I bought them. I'm like, oh, they're on sale. I drink coffee every now and then, and I could also make some iced coffee over the summer. Nothing better than iced coffee. Fucking delicious. A little bit of milk, a little bit of sugar. You're fucking off to the races, bro. And iced coffee, the other benefit, just a little side tangent here, iced coffee is less acidic than hot coffee, just because of the way that it's made. Because iced coffee, you have to steep it for at least, I think it's 24, if not 48 hours before you remove all the grounds and everything. Especially if you make it with espresso, then filtering is fucking smooth. But it's very, very potent and delicious and smooth. And I used to have this all the time as a nice little treat, right? Especially during the summer. Getting some work done, waking up in the morning with a cigarette. Oh, it was great. Now that same bag costs fucking $4 or $5. What it used to cost a fraction. I think it was called Lavazza coffee. It's not the best espresso. It's not the greatest, but it got the job done and it was nice. Yeah, I'd buy this vacuum sealed pack. It costs $5, $6 now, if you're lucky. Like food cost has outgrown every other cost that people have in Canada. I'm fairly certain. Let me just fact check myself in real time. Is it true that the cost of food has outpaced every other cost in Canadian households? Tell me, Grok. Tell me, oh wise wizard. Oh, it hasn't outpaced every other cost. They haven't outpaced all other costs. Okay, my mistake. But it's still pretty fucking expensive, and it's bad enough that people are hitting the food bank at record high rates. And the reason that I talk all this stuff about food is because this is one of Carney'S talking points during the campaign. He said, don't judge me based on what I say. Don't judge me based on the promises I make. Judge me based on the price of groceries. Judge me based on your grocery bill. Well, what the it's been more than half a year, dude. What the fuck are you doing? You're the guy, you're the head nigga in charge. What are you waiting for? You're telling me you can't make shit cheaper? Really? The one of the few things you actually campaigned on is the one thing that you just completely just renege, like you just nope, I didn't say that. And then in the speech, in the WEF speech, you say that a country that cannot feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. You made that possible. Mark Carney was the economic advisor to Trudeau for several years before he went and became the prime minister. His party, even if we excuse Carney, if we just look at the Liberal Party, they were in power for 10 years. Even if you dismiss COVID, right? COVID is an outlier. I understand that. But we're well past COVID. These people have no fucking ground to stand on. Right? Because that was the big question during, right after COVID, people were asking, okay, well, when is the economy going to restart? When are we actually going to get back to work? When are we going to live up to our standards? When are we going to start raising the GDP? When are we going to start to see some improvement in quality of life? And the excuse, the party line was always, oh, well, COVID is unprecedented times. Every country's going through inflation. It's not just us. It's not our fault. Even though you've spent fucking twice the money that we have, 3 times the money that we have, printing money like it's nobody's business. Our currency is inflating. Even with all of that, they still blamed COVID. Still, what's your excuse now? What is your excuse now? How are we living? We are the neighbor of the most powerful economy and military power in the world right now. And we have record high food bank use across the nation? Are you fucking kidding me? And you're at the WEF saying, oh my God, I'm going to be the first guy to take the sign out the window. I'm going to say that the new world order is here. We're not living in America's world order anymore. I'm the brave one. Great. You're the leader of a nation that can't fucking feed itself. Insane. Anyways, that was just one of the quotes. It goes on even further. Here's another quote. Canada has what the world wants. We are an energy superpower. We hold vast reserves of critical minerals. We have the most educated population in the world. Our pension funds are among the world's largest and most sophisticated investors. In other words, we have capital talent. We also have a government with immense fiscal capacity to act decisively, and we have the values to which many others aspire. Right, so if that's the case, why are we so fucking shit? Why is Canada in the absolute dump? Why are people in so much debt? Why do our urban centers, our metropolitan centers where we have supposed to have the highest quality of roads, highest quality infrastructure, most investments, right? Most populated areas of the country, all across the provinces, from the west coast to the east coast, from east to west, whatever way you go. Why do they have so many problems, and why are they decaying? Why are our downtown cores filled with fucking homeless, addicts, and crazy people? You walk outside of Union Station, it's a shit show. The gates to the city, as I've said before, the gates to the city are filled with so much garbage, so much putrid filth, that your first impression isn't, oh my God, what an amazing city. Your first impression is, what the fuck is that smell? If you don't, God, if you don't believe me at this point, there's an account by the name of Integrity TO. They did a walkthrough through Union Station. Right? They did a walkthrough. Let me find it in the media here. They did a walkthrough through Union Station, and you tell me, okay, you tell me if this is the mark of a world-class city. Let me just find it here. Hold on. Integrity TO Union. What? Okay. They have a fucking underscore. Of course they do. No, because this footage was... I mean, it was just fucking... No, let me mute that. Hold on. Hold on. Bear with me for a moment, folks. I promise this is worth it. I didn't plan on bringing this video up, but Jesus fucking Christ. Here it is. This legendary clip.
Okay. Yeah, there.
This is not even 5 minutes out of the station. You get out of your train, you walk out, and you pick which street you want to walk on. Any exit you take, you're going to see this. You're going to see people doubled over. You're going to see drug deals. You're going to smell piss and shit. And you're going to see a guy acting like a fucking crazy maniac who may or may not intend to hurt you. Okay, if Canada is doing so great, if all these countries, right, they want what we have, if we're so good, if we're so better off, why is it that the places that should be doing the best, right? The urban centers, the cities that have the most business investment, that have the highest tax income, right? The amount of taxes that are going towards the federal government, the municipal government, the provincial government, right? Because you have more people. That's how it concentrates. If that's the case, then why isn't every city a metropolis? Why is every city fucking San Francisco, or they have a mini San Francisco inside of them? Why is it so bad if you say it is so good? Is my question. I mean, this is crazy. And this one of the last quotes here. Oh, no, I guess this is the last quote. Carney also says, quote, "The powerful have their power, but we have something too, the capacity to stop pretending, to name realities, to build our strength at home, and to act together." Brother, you're literally running the party that says trans women are women. Your party denies reality. Your party is responsible for the crackdown of citizens of the Freedom Convoy. You froze people's you're part of the party that froze people's bank accounts, that took their civil liberties away from them temporarily because they didn't like that they were protesting, that they were effective, that they were throwing it back in the face of the government, that they were actually standing up to them and asking difficult questions and demanding that changes be made. That is the party that you're a part of. And you're standing out here saying that we have to stop pretending, that we have to name realities. You're living in your own fucking reality. I mean, absolutely. Like, it was only not even a year ago that Carney stood on the national stage in the debates and said that China is our primary security concern when it comes to matters of national security. Those are his own words. And not even a year later, he's making a deal with them. How do you square that circle? How do you explain that? Right? So all of these quotes that I've been elaborating on and taking the time, like, look, I get it. A speech is a speech is a speech. God knows who the fuck wrote this shit for him. God knows what assistants actually did this work for him, or if he wrote it himself. Fine. You go out there and you say your pretty little words. I understand it. This is the game of politics, right? They go out there, they say nice shit, and the back rooms, they're actually making things happen. I understand that. But if I'm going to take all these people at their word, right, this is some colossal, amazing, life-changing speech. Holy shit, this guy fucking figured out politics. He showed Canada's #1. Oh my God, Mr. Carney, have my kids. What the fuck are we talking about here? If you actually look at the speech and what he said and where Canada actually is, if you acknowledge the reality of where we are as a struggling nation, which is basically what we are, right? We're doing pretty good. You know, we got running water, we got electricity that's fairly consistent. You know, there's infrastructure, the bus comes on time, the subway works, you know, you pay your taxes, you can get a fucking burger at 2 a.m. Sure. But on your way to the burger place, you're going to stumble over a guy that's fucking high on fent. Or you take your kids to school, and then next thing you know, they're talking about land back. They're talking about mommy, daddy, I don't know if I'm a boy or a girl. Any number of the things that I've mentioned tonight, any of these things. Right, sure, we have the privilege of living in a Western nation and we're so technologically advanced, we have 5G and all that. Yeah, but you're getting raped out the ass on your fucking bills. Your food costs 200, 300, 400% more than it used to. You can't fucking buy a house. Owning a house is a fucking meme in Canada. I joke about it with my friends. It's like it's become the butt of the joke because you have to laugh, otherwise you cry. But that's how bad it is. We joke at the ability of owning land. How fucked up is that in our own country? Right? So this is why I go so all in on the speech. Because initially I was like, why the fuck would I cover it? It's just words. Who gives a shit? He's not saying anything of value. But then I saw the reaction and I thought, okay, you know what? Fine. Let's play their game. Let's be literal for a second here. Let's assume that everything that Carney is saying, he truly believes in. Right? Because this is some monumental speech. A stroke of genius. Let's say all of that is true. Right? Let's say all of that is true. And let's look at it line by line, which we did for only like 4 sections of it. The speech goes on and on and on, and I honestly do not give like 2 shits to go look into it deeper. You're more than welcome to check the actual transcript and see it for yourself, but I just can't stomach that. I can't handle somebody that is just so bold-facingly lying to not only the entire nation, but to the rest of the world about where Canada is and why we believe in what we believe. It's just, it's disgusting. It's nothing short of disgusting. I don't know how he lives with himself. I really don't. I don't know how he can sleep at night making the decisions that he does, but I guess he does. So decides to go out and represent Canada on the world stage and makes all these lofty statements, but it doesn't fucking mean anything. It's not based in reality. It's not at all in line with where Canada is or what our ideals are. And the best part is when he actually got called on it, right? Because a lot of the things I'm talking about, you would think, okay, well, if a retard like me can think of it, there's got to be a journalist or somebody out there that's going to ask him a question on it, right? So here's an example of that. This is a fucking great one. As I referenced in the last talk, or in the episode before last, China's been making inroads to get into Alaska, or not Alaska, but the Arctic, because they also want access to those resources and trade ports and so on and so forth, right? And because China has been trying to get in, Russia's been trying to get in, the US is trying to get in, Canada's trying to get in, that's the next frontier, effectively, right? And so guess what Mr. Carney said when he was asked about this?
President Trump says, oh, you know, Greenland's under threat from Russia, even from China. Is that for real?
I would say that there are threats. Russia is without question a threat in the Arctic, without question. Russia does lots of horrible things, and I'll take the opportunity to condemn their unjustified and horrific assault on Ukraine, almost at its 4th year. They are a real threat in the Arctic, one against we need to protect, which is why we have 364 5-day air, sea, and land presence. It's why we're adding to our submarine fleet, adding to our air fighter fleet, why we're building out over-the-horizon radar to protect from Russian missile threats and others, and why we will work with our NATO partners.
President Trump says, oh, you know, Greenland's under threat.
Notice anything different from his answer? You notice he didn't mention China once? You notice that part of the question, the guy asked him Russia and China, and Carney just completely dismissed that part because he doesn't want to answer it, because it puts him in a position he doesn't want to be in. He doesn't want to answer any questions that make it difficult for him to justify why Canada is making a deal with China. He doesn't want to be held accountable. No. See, because here's my other issue with it. It's not because, once again, it's not because I'm ignorant to the idea or how political theater works, right? I understand why he's in this position and why he can't say that. But that's not what a strong leader does. A strong leader, which is what he's trying to articulate himself as here, and in all of his other appearances, right? A strong leader will actually come out and say, here's my red line with China. I know we made a deal with them, but here's my red line, right? We made the deal understanding that they wouldn't go past point A, B, C, whatever the fuck, right? Here is the guardrail. And if China trips it, we will nuke the deal, right? We will set up sanctions. We'll do this. We'll do that. That's what a man in charge says. That's what a leader who controls the situation says. Not somebody that capitulates, not somebody that minces words, not somebody who stumbles over themselves saying, None of that. A strong leader doesn't do that. And before we continue, let me just pop this in. Get another pillow in there. Once again, I have no words, but the man speaks for himself, completely ignores China, doesn't in any way mention their foreign meddling or interference in the Arctic region, which is an actual thing. Like, they're 100% trying to gun for it. I proved it in the episode before last. I keep referencing that episode, but that's because, China deal is so recent it keeps coming out, so check it out if you haven't seen it. And then, for some reason, he just decided to straight up lie about how much money or how much global trade is made up of Canada and the Nordic regions. I don't know where this fucking came from. I mean, the guy touted himself as the economist, the banker, the guy that knows what's going on in the room. I know how to deal with people. I understand how the world works. Right? He understands how the world works, and he makes a blunder that a fucking 8th grader could debunk in a second. Let's give this a watch.
I'll give you again, I'll appeal since it's in the headlines to the Nordics. Nordics plus Canada, it's 20% of global GDP. Nordics plus Canada, it's 20% of global GDP. It's not the first thing people would realize.
This is a bop.
Nordics plus Canada, it's 20% of global GDP.
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit outside. Honestly, I'm going to fucking retweet this. Where's the crying face? There we go. I mean, this is the guy that's in charge. This is the man that we're supposed to trust. This is the guy that knows what's going on. He knows how world trade works with these nations, and he's making astronomical figures up like that, like just out of his ass. He's just pulling the shit out of a hat. I don't understand it. And then, of course, right, in reaction to all this activity in the WEF, whether it's from Carney or the political representatives, Trump has his time, and he makes his own speech. And a part of his speech, I mean, look, I'll say this before I get any further. Some of the shit that Trump said regarding troops in Afghanistan and that Canadian troops were behind the line, the way that I take that is, okay, for those who don't know, Trump essentially made a statement saying that NATO's involvement in Afghanistan was not nearly as substantial as that of America's, and that they were actually on the back lines, they were not on the front lines, minimizing the sacrifice that these people made going to Afghanistan, all the people that died, and even beyond that, what was lost by them and their families, and, from death or from suicide or from what have you. He was essentially minimizing that, and a lot of people have taken disrespect to it, which I totally understand. I'm not of the mind that, that's so ridiculous. Why would you be so upset about that? I understand it, right? But the way that I take it is, I don't think it's because Trump actually thinks it through. I think he's just trying to dig. He's trying to get like a dig at these people. He's trying to just like stick it to them and say, you ain't shit. The Americans did everything. You guys just fucking supported us, right? And America did provide the overwhelming force more than any other nation, sure. But downplaying the sacrifices of those soldiers as if it was nothing, I mean, I don't know. To me, it sounds like he's lashing out. I don't think a rational person would say that, and Trump is certainly not by any means of the imagination, by any stretch of the imagination, rather, what we would conventionally call a rational person. That doesn't mean that he's stupid or retarded or that he's crazy. It's just that he doesn't operate on the same level as the average person. So getting into his psyche, it's very difficult. But an easy way to understand it is he loves praise, right? And anybody that goes against him, he doesn't care. He fucking dismissed a Gold Star family, right? A veteran family during his election campaign. He was making fun of disabled journalists. I mean, this guy does not give a fuck. So that's the way that I treat that statement. I don't think it's because he's vindictive about the sacrifices that Canadians made or the French, the British, whoever else was sent there, the Australians. But either way, not a good fucking look. Not a good look to say that. That does not give you any votes. But that is not to take away from the truth of this fact, right? And this is an uncomfortable truth for many Canadians, especially the elbows up crowd, naturally. But let's just listen to what Mr. Trump said here.
We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. We're building a golden dome.
Yeah, he's not wrong. Yeah, see, this is the harsh reality that many Canadians have to make their peace with. Right? If we're talking about accepting reality as it is and making deals with devils and living in the world as it is with open eyes, right, guys? We got our. I hope everyone's got their fucking eyes open. Open eyes and ears, fucking open. Right? If we're accepting that new reality, then yes, he is absolutely right. Canada has such a reliance on America in every way possible that if America just disappeared from existence tomorrow, every American, if the entire continent just became desolate and there was nobody there, all the buildings, it just got razed completely. God's wrath just fucking raptured everyone, took them all the boats, the ships, the armies, everything, every business. If all of that disappeared tomorrow, Canada would, they would die. Yes, we would eventually. Absolutely. There is no denying that. 80% of Canada's trade depends on the United States. 80%. 80% of our exports go to the US. And sure, maybe we can find replacements for some of the market elsewhere, but we could never find somebody that could replace America. Right? Not just to mention that, 94% of our crude oil exports go to the US. Okay, here's another fact. 80% of Canada's spending on defense, our armies, our guns, our bullets, our ships, our planes, our surveillance equipment, that all comes from America and American contractors. Not to mention that we are each other's largest critical mineral trade partners. Those are just but a few. I haven't even gotten into agriculture. I haven't even gotten into culture. How many Canadians go to America to make it? The amount of graduates that go from Waterloo, our top engineering university, that go over to San Francisco to work at these startups, a good chunk of them are Canadians. You'll find them in every tech company. There's always a ton of Canadians because that's where the talent goes. That's where the money is, right? That's part of the problems that we have here in Canada. We have a huge brain drain problem where our brightest and smartest go south of the border because they get paid more, because there's more opportunity there. Canada has had... We have had a trading relationship with the US that stretches back more than 100 years. Okay, we literally subsist off of them. And I don't mean to say that we leech off of them. Canada produces enough goods to be a solid trading partner of the US. I'm not saying that we're fucking sucking their dick 24/7 and sucking off their teat. We're not mooching off of them. Canada is producing plenty of its own goods and its industries, but you can't take that for granted. You can't take America for granted. If they disappeared tomorrow, we would be fucked. We would be royally fucked. And I'm tired of pretending that that's not the case. You know, as I've said before on the show many times, Canadians have this chip on their shoulder. Some of them, right? Especially the elbows up crowd, thinking, oh, whatever, America ain't shit. They ain't shit. We'll do fine without them. Let them isolate. Do you even understand what that means? Do you understand how much of the economy that's based on the southern border would disappear overnight if America just shut off the border completely? How many businesses would shut down? Okay, you know what? If you're still not convinced, let me put it to you this way. The entire GDP of Texas, the one state of Texas, is 2.8 trillion. Okay, and let me look that up. GDP of Texas. And I fact-checked this before talking about it, so I know what I'm talking about. Their entire GDP in 2024 was almost 2.8 trillion, right? And if I put up GDP of Canada, it's fucking 2.3. Barely, and I'm rounding up. 2.3 trillion. We're 500 billion off of the GDP of one state. Okay, this should be a reality check to Canadians everywhere. we literally have less GDP, if that's the number that we're going off of, than one state. And Texas is an extraordinary state, right? They stand out. They're an outlier. I understand that. But nonetheless, it's a state. America has 51 of them. California has a higher GDP than most European nations. I mean, what the fuck is the counter signal here? What is the counter argument? Of course we live off of them. Of course we do. You have to recognize that. If we're recognizing the world as it is and we're opening our eyes, I don't even want to make the fucking hand gestures again. Then we have to realize we are extremely dependent on the US. They are our lifeline. That's not even getting into fucking like the security, the NORAD, the fact that they have armies everywhere. You know that the only reason that maritime trade is as safe as it is, right? All those big ships with the shipping containers going across the world 24/7, the only reason that that is possible right now as it is in its current state is because of America. And I'm talking for the entire world, okay? 80% of trade in the entire world, 80 to 90% of it exists on the oceans through these shipping containers. 80%. That is overwhelmingly the majority of trade. And it exists on the sea because America allows it. And the only reason I say that, right, is because there was an incident, I don't know if you guys remember, back in 2024, when the Houthis were popping off and they were going after these tankers. Right? This small group of pirates was able to affect trade globally by dipping it by 1.3%. That's the estimated percentage. Right? That's just one group of pirates. Imagine if America disappeared tomorrow, how many more would pop up? How secure do you think your trade would be globally without America putting its ships and military stations and all their soldiers to protect the routes? If America is not there, we're fucked. We are all fucked. Because guess what? It's not even about defense. Fine, okay, so what? Every other nation starts to put out their own ships and they start to patrol their own seas. Okay, but the insurance that goes on these ships, right? Because all of these companies, they have insurance against pirates, against theft, against fucking natural disasters, everything. The insurance premiums would go way up. They'd skyrocket because no one country would be able to replace the Americans. No one country would be able to do that, to provide that kind of service. That's why when I say that Canada would not exist if it wasn't for America. That's what I mean. We are so intricately tied to their success that when America succeeds, Canada succeeds. When America does bad, Canada does bad. You know, there's an old Russian proverb that goes something along the lines of, when America sneezes, the entire world catches a cold, because it's fucking true. Their financial crisis becomes the world's financial crisis. The 2008 financial crisis spread to the entire world. It affected almost every country that was tied to those markets. Okay, they set the tempo for the West. Whether you like it or not, that's a reality. And Canadians better get real fucking comfortable with that. Now, people want to say, okay, it shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't be as dependent. Fine. I'm ready to have that conversation. Absolutely. Canada should be producing a lot more domestically. We should be investing in our own energy production. We should be investing in our own forestry, in our own dairy, in our own food, agriculture, what have you, in every single sector. I'm in 100% agreement with that. Canada first. That's what I'm here for. That's what this show is all about. But the fact that so many people took issues with Trump's statement just means they've completely lost the plot. There were so many pundits and political activists and even politicians coming out on Twitter saying, oh, fuck Trump, fuck what he's saying. He's wrong. Canada's strong. No, that could not be further from the truth. As I've said before, I hate to sound like a fucking broken record here. Record high food bank usage, record high deficits with government spending, unemployment is up, especially for the youth. Housing is a fucking problem. People joke about being able to buy a house. That shouldn't be a reality in your nation. Homelessness is up by like 8% since last year. There's like 80,000 homeless people in Ontario alone. That's the size of a fucking, not even a small town, of a medium-sized town. And that's just Ontario. I mean, my God, like, as many issues that people have with Trump, with all due respect, he's gonna be gone. In 2 years, he's gonna be gone. This relationship that Canada and the US have had, it will outlive him. It will outlive him and it will pass. This will pass. This too will pass. So all this fucking elbows up energy, get that shit the fuck out of here. That has no place in Canada first. Why would you be aggressive with the world's strongest economy to the south of our border? Why would you poke the bear in the eye? Why would you do that? They can fucking cripple us. That's the point that we have to start all of this other shit from. Right? From there, we can start talking, okay, so this is the new reality. Or not the new reality, but this is the reality we live in. So how do we as a nation build from that? How do we make it so that we're not as dependent on them? How do we make it so that we can insulate ourselves more? How do we build our own infrastructure? How do we build our own financial institutions back? How do we change our education system, right? That's what the conversation should be on. Not this fucking gallivanting across the world, making deals with China, Qatar. And I'm not saying all this as if I have all the answers. Right? Notice I'm not making any major policy declarations of what needs to be done. I just have the broad strokes. Okay, deport the millions of illegals that we have here. Deport the people whose visas are going to run out. Establish a unified culture around what it means to be Canadian. Make the citizenship worth something. Stop fucking with people's money in Parliament. Stop spending it on asinine things. Right? All of these things, they're very simple. They're very simple. Bring back industry to Canada. Make Canada an actual interesting, not an interesting, but a viable place for people to invest in. Clean up the inner city. Clean up all the urban environments. Every single metropolitan area that needs to be fucking squeaky clean because we have a reputation to uphold. We have a culture to value. Stop arresting people for speaking out against the government. right? How's about we start with that? How's about we start with some of those? Nope, fucking as soon as Trump came out with that comment, everybody was like, oh my God, he's 51st state, fucking elbows up, fuck America. Stop. Do not lose focus. Do not be emotional. Think about this for a second, what it means to have a trading partner like America, how lucky we are to share the border with them, and to have such a close alliance with the strongest economic power. I will never say this. Sorry, I will never stop saying this. The strongest economy in the world is just a fucking 3-hour car ride from any metropolitan area in Canada, just about. The strongest army, the strongest cultural force in the West. They're literally to our south, immediately. Why do we have to keep insisting on shooting ourselves in the foot? We have such a great opportunity to make amazing partnerships, to cut great deals. There should be light speed rail going across every single metropolitan area from America to the United States. And by light speed, I mean like the speed of light. Okay, we should have the best internet connection in the world. We should have the best infrastructure in the world between our nations. We should have the strongest partnership of any other nation out there with the United States. And yet we have all this fucking blustering New World Order, making deals with China, Qatar. Great. Yeah, let's see where that fucking takes us. Let's see where that fucking takes us. So anyways, the WEF happens. Trump makes that speech. Carney comes out in opposition. And there's a quote here during Carney's speech in Quebec. He recently made, I think, just, what was it, yesterday? At the end of the speech, right, he makes a reference to what Trump said. And Trump essentially said, Canada lives because of the US, which we do. It's a fact. There's no avoiding it. Right? This is what he had to say.
When we live our values, we grow as individuals and we build as a people. When we're kind, kindness grows. When we're united, unity grows. When we're Canadian, inclusive, fair, ambitious, Canada grows. Canada and the United States have built a remarkable partnership in the economy, in security, and in rich cultural exchange. But Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian. When we live.
Canada thrives when we're Canadian. Canada thrives when we're Canadian. Canada thrives because we are Canadian. Let me just do a little speed run of my own here. Does this, just posing a question as I pull this up, does this look like thriving to you?
Going on across.
Does this look like thriving to you? This is downtown Vancouver. Cop car just passing by, graffiti everywhere, homeless everywhere, putting up camps. Dude just setting the fucking thing on fire. Another cop car. Some dude fucking KO'd out with a walker. Just an open air fire. Yeah, just keep warm. Hair dangerously close to it. Yeah, does that look like we're thriving? How about this? Does this look like we're thriving? Does it look like we're thriving when we have protests taking over public spaces? Nobody getting arrested? In the busiest time of the year, these fucking Hamas protesters, sorry, not the Hamas, the pro-Palestine protesters decided to make a showing. There's private security everywhere in the mall. They could have just fucking shoved these people out of here. What fucking right do they have to come in with their megaphones? Right, that lady is holding a megaphone, yelling in people's ears some shit about Palestine as they're shopping for the holiday season. The mall is packed, thousands of people everywhere, and they're just letting it happen. Does this look like we're thriving? We're allowing these people to occupy these public spaces and just to take over? Does this look like thriving to you? Nobody arrested? Some of these protesters legitimately wishing the death to Jews? Which, look, whatever fucking angle you have on the Israel conflict, the Israel-Palestine war, whatever you want to call it, you don't have the right to just fucking do this. This conflict has nothing to do with Canada. Yeah, okay, we're sending millions of dollars, but I disagree with that too. We shouldn't be fucking doing that. This has nothing to do with Canada. Nothing to do with what's going on in our country. And this fucking lady is just yelling into a megaphone. What are they doing? Wearing the dude, it's so loud, the lady beside her is literally plugging her fucking ears. Does that look like we're thriving? We're letting people just do that in public spaces across Canada? Does it look like we're thriving when we have fucking queues for job fairs going around the block for entry level? Oh, look at that. A trans flag. Trans flag crosswalk. God, this is fucking the perfect image of Canada. You have a line of people going across the block for a basic fucking entry level job, working at like a Hamilton Mall or some shit. And it's just, look at these are mostly just young people. They can't find a job. It's so hard that they have to line up across the block. I understand that job fairs are popular, but Jesus fucking Christ, Ontario has the highest joblessness rate for youth in the entire nation. It wraps around the block 3 times. This is not normal. Does this look like thriving to you? Does this look like we're thriving? Like Canada's thriving? We thrive because we're Canadian? We're fucking lagging behind almost every single developed nation when it comes to GDP growth per capita. For 10 years, we've had a growth of 0.5%. It's called the lost decade. Because when you look at it on a graph, 2015 when Trudeau became prime minister and where we are in 2025, you could cut a straight line. We're back to where we started. Our GDP per capita has not improved. We're literally in the exact same fucking place we were 10 years ago. The US has grown 20%. Denmark has grown 18%. Spain has grown 17%. Like, it goes on and on and on. Yeah, we're thriving. Oh my God, I'm thriving so fucking hard, Mr. Carney. Holy shit, I'm gonna thrive. Toronto real estate, just a headline literally not even like a couple days ago. Toronto real estate, 100,000 jobs at risk as new home sales drop to lowest level in 45 years. The situation is absolutely dire, according to a new report from the Building Industry and Land Development Association. Absolutely dire. We have the lowest home sales in 45 years. In almost half a fucking century. We're thriving? Really? Oh man, we're thriving so fucking hard, Mr. Carney. We're gonna thrive all over the place. Canadian Food Bank record over 4 million visits this year. Wow, look at that. The story I've been referencing this whole fucking night. Really? We're thriving? This is what we call thriving? If this is thriving, I hate to see what happens when we fucking lose. I would really hate to see what happens when we fucking lose. Insane. Here's another quote from the speech where he says, and I shit you not, he says that this is, I mean, just, and the epitome of why Canada is in the place that it is. Quote, "It's a great country for everyone. It is the greatest country in the world to be a regular person." To be a regular person? This is what we're hoping for? Just to have a regular life, a regular person? Not to be extraordinary? I mean, if there was ever a time to make that message, to make that overture to Canadians, that we need to step up to the moment. We need to live up and beyond our expectations. We need to go further and bolder and beyond anything that we've ever done before. We need to rip our nation from its stagnation and get to building the next millennium. Isn't that a more exciting message? Why would he say that it's the greatest country, to be a regular person? What kind of asinine fucking bullshit is that? Here's another quote. "Canadians are inclusive. We know our country is stronger when everyone belongs, when newcomers are welcomed, when minorities are protected, when indigenous people are true partners. So does inclusive also just, is that code word for record high immigration levels? Importing millions of people from a nation that doesn't even hold our values? So when they come over here, right, they start committing crimes, they treat our women differently, they treat our laws differently. They take up all the fucking minimum skill jobs. So all the youth and anyone else that is trying to get an entry-level gig is having the hardest time of their fucking life. Youth unemployment at its highest that it's ever been. Or God knows how high it's been in the last however many fucking years. And the indigenous, half the time, they're blocking our fucking pipelines. Why are we even consulting with them? With all due respect, okay? The indigenous made their deals and they got conquered. Okay, this land does not belong to them. It doesn't. It belongs to the state, to the nation of Canada. That's who it belongs to. They have their reservations, fine, sure. But why the fuck are we letting them get in the way of our economic activity? Economic activity, mind you, that would also benefit them. Because then Canada has more revenue. We have more taxes coming into the federal government so they can spend even more money on indigenous causes. And if you think I'm being heartless, okay, if you think that that is a heartless thing to say, do you know that for a fact, we've spent twice as much on indigenous affairs than we did on the military in 2024? Let me repeat that, okay? Canada has spent twice as much money on indigenous affairs. So all the payments that we send to people when they turn 18, all the supports that they receive, right? All the government assistance, all the government funding towards anything related to indigenous services, twice as much. That is how much money they spent, twice as much as they did on the fucking military, on our national defense. And these people are still having water shortages. Their quality of life is fucking ass. How many of them are alcoholics, criminals? How many of them are illiterate? They don't have opportunities. They don't have jobs because when you live on the reservation, a box of Kraft dinner costs $30. You know, my heart goes out to them. That seems like a really fucking shit way to live, but there is absolutely no reason why in 2026, if we're spending this much fucking money on them, if that much of our money, of our taxpayer dollars, of our time on this planet, our finite time on this planet, is getting sent to support these people, and we're spending twice as much on that than we are on the military, and they're still dealing with these fucking issues? No, you've lost the plot. I'm sorry, but now I'm of the mind that we actually don't owe these people anything anymore. I'm of the mind that we actually shouldn't be sending any more money. Because if they still can't get their fucking shit together after we send this colossal check to them year in, year out, and it keeps getting fucking bigger, what are they doing with that money? Where's it going? Who's spending it? Is there any way to hold their leaders accountable? Are they just fucking robbing the coffers and stealing from their own people? That's what it seems like. Because the money's not going to the average everyday indigenous person. Doesn't seem like it. If it was, would these issues still exist? I mean, where is the fucking problem? Can anybody point that out? So when Carney says, when indigenous people are true partners, fuck off. They're not true partners. They don't own the land anymore. Canadians settled it. The British settled it. The French settled it. And now we live in a union of Canada. And your job is to look out for Canadians' interests. Not bend the knee anytime an indigenous person says, oh, sorry, you can't go through my land. Your land? What the fuck are you talking about? Not to mention, right, before I get into the next quote, not to mention, it's not even their fucking land. They haven't been there since the dawn of time. There was another tribe that owned it before they did, and a tribe before that, and a tribe before that. They weren't there since the fucking beginning. Who says that they own this land? You know who owns that land? Whoever has the bigger fucking gun. And it's the state of Canada. Or sorry, the nation of Canada. At least it's supposed to be. But no, we're bending the knee to these people and we're saying, oh no, I guess they can't, they said we can't build any pipelines. Oh, we can't be mean. What the fuck are you on about? You can't strike a deal with them where maybe a percentage of the profits goes to them? Is there really no way to make it so that like it's secure, so that it doesn't pollute the environment too much? Like, are we just not going to live in reality? We're just going to let our nation stagnate because we don't want to be too mean? What the fuck are you on about? How are we going to make it into the next century if we don't set up these pipelines, if we don't do that? How are we supposed to do that if we're importing millions of Indians and we're not deporting them at the rate that we need to? Canada's strong when Canada thrives because we're Canadian. Yeah, we're really fucking thriving here. I'm choking on all the thriving that's going around here. Here's another quote. Canadians believe that fairness includes equality of opportunity so that every Canadian has a shot at a good and fulfilling life. The foundation of this commitment is access for every Canadian to comparable public services, particularly healthcare and education. As I said before in the show, and I've brought up this story multiple times, literally tens of thousands of people are dying waiting for healthcare in Canada. And that quote that I said earlier, the total number of reported waitlist deaths since 2018 is more than 100,000. Where's my fucking quality of healthcare? Having a doctor in Ontario, a family doctor in Ontario, God, you're blessed if you were able to get one. Fucking blessed. That is a rarity if you have a family doctor in Ontario. Holy shit, what a golden goose egg you're sitting on. Luckier enough, especially if you had it when you're young. If you had one when you're young. Otherwise, you're shit out of luck. What if you have to get an emergency procedure done? Now you're a statistic. Now you get piled in with that other 100,000. That's fucking great. We've had countless stories in the last several months, in the last years, of people just dying in the ER. They're just waiting for treatment. Just waiting. They're just sitting there in the waiting room and they fucking die. Because there aren't enough doctors. There isn't enough room in the hospitals. There isn't enough resources, I guess, in the system. Fucking free healthcare. Wow, what a treat. You get taxed out the ass for it, and the system is so shit because it's just swamped. There's too many people here. Too many illegals. Too many immigrants. They flooded the system too quickly. And now the average everyday Canadian that spent all these years in their life paying their taxes, voting, going to work, doing the right thing, trying to raise a family, when they have a health emergency, they're the ones that get fucked. The people that are the lifeblood of this nation, they're the ones getting fucked. How's that for free healthcare? How's that for free healthcare? And here's another quote. Final one for the speech. In a time of democratic decline, we can show how rights can be protected and how equal freedoms can endure. How rights can be protected? I went on this rant earlier, and I don't want to rehash most of it because what's said is said. But you're literally part of the party. You're the leader of the party who trampled on citizens' rights when they had a disagreement with you about the way that they were getting treated during COVID. When they came to you with their demands, your party told them, get fucked, and we're freezing your bank accounts, and we're taking away your trucker licenses, and we're seizing your assets, and we're throwing some of you in jail. And then also when we come to squash the protests, we're going to send in horse cops so that they trample an 80-year-old grandma. Which they did. It's an infamous incident. Really? Like that's democracy in action? That's a democratic process? That's how you deal with protesters? People that actually stand up to the government? You demonize them? You call them Nazis? You call them sexists? You call them racists? Average Canadians. For anyone that even saw any footage of the convoy, now it was just played on the news. But if you just go on YouTube and all the people that did the walkthroughs through the convoys, you'll actually see complete diverse range of people. You had brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers and grandmas and grandpas. You had union workers. You had fucking baristas, truck drivers, what have you. It was a whole smorgasbord of Canadians. You know, the Liberals, they love to pat themselves on the back for loving diversity. That was the most diverse crowd of Canadians you could ever latch your eyes on. There were natives and immigrants and citizens. Everyone. It was a true people's movement. And what did you do? What did your party do? You took away their rights. You seized their assets. You took away their money. Who the fuck are you to get up in front of our nation and to speak on democracy? The courts ruled twice that what your government did was illegal, and nobody, not a single representative, has come out and said anything about it. It's been a week. It's been a week since then. And not one of you has come out and said anything. None of these people that were responsible, chances are they're never going to be held account. They're never going to be held for their responsibility in what they did. In absolutely the most serious crackdown on protesters in modern history in North America. I can't think of a single incident besides maybe the Vietnam protests in the U.S., where some of the National Guard shot up the students because there were some violent acts and whatnot. I mean, that's really the only one that stands out. But at least in Canadian modern history, I can't recall anything like that. Not in my lifetime, at least. And you want to speak on democracy? After everything that your party and your government did to people during COVID, you forced people like myself to not be able to go on a train or a plane. I could only travel by bus within Canada, or if I drove. I couldn't leave the fucking country since I didn't get the jab. You literally imprisoned people in their own country, and anytime any of them spoke out, they were demonized on social media. If they were a person, like a personality that was on TV, or if they had any kind of clout, completely just disbarred from society, just ushered out of polite society. Completely. You were deemed an anti-vaxxer. You were deemed responsible for the deaths of the vaccinated, of everyone, of the vulnerable. And you want to talk to me about democracy, about freedoms? Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck your party. Fuck the horse you ridden on. Fuck you. And fuck everyone that's around you for supporting that and for abetting that. Fuck you, Mr. Carney. Fuck you. So, that concludes my little analysis of his speech. And anyway, so this is a speech that he made in Quebec upon arrival from the WEF. Just honestly, complete fucking shit show in my opinion. And that's not because I obviously have not a hatred, but a strong dislike, right? Because I don't hold hatred in my heart. I try not to. That shit's unhealthy for you. But an extremely strong dislike for Mr. Carney and what his government and what representatives of his government, his party have done to the people. Just a complete shit show. I mean, making deals with China after everything they've done to us, making deals with Qatar, a power that believes in Sharia law, completely just opposite of what Canada is like, and they're opening cultural avenues to them. Insane. Actually insane. Then he goes to the WEF and he makes this grand gesture, this grand speech, the speech heard around the world. America's no longer in power. They're not number one. We can't rely on them. They're not stable. Our middle powers, we have to get together. We have to make our own deals. We got to take that sign out of that shop. Right? All those fucking lovely metaphors didn't mean shit. And I only broke down like 4 sections of his speech, but all of that just invalidates everything that he said because it has no bearing in reality. The only true thing that he said at the WEF is that, yeah, America can sometimes be unpredictable and we probably shouldn't rely on them for everything. Same goes for China, if you think about it. Same goes for Russia. Any of these major powers. They're unstable. right? Or at least they have the capacity to be unstable. And you can't put all your chips in one basket. All your eggs in one basket. Okay, sure, that's fairly pragmatic. I understand that. I understand the value in that. But that doesn't mean that you make the deal with the fucking devil twice in the same week. A devil that actually actively seeks to harm you. Or a devil through the deal which you make profit. A deal with the devil through which you make profit. That's what Carney did. Because once he gets out, Brookfield will be enriched, and he will have his assets of Brookfield back, and therefore he will be enriched. So he and his friends will make plenty of money. Great, you just sold out Canada. Go fuck yourself. Okay, this man is literally the enemy of the people. We have a snake in the henhouse, if that's not clear enough. Just because he's nice and he smiles and he seems jovial, that doesn't mean shit. That doesn't mean shit. This guy will actively work to destroy Canada from within. And it might seem difficult to believe that, but I have no reason not to believe that. Why would you make a deal with China? They've stabbed us in the back countless times. You made a deal with them and you didn't even set any guardrails. You didn't set any red lines. You didn't say if China does X, we will do Y. Like, none of that. Nope, just open collaboration. Fucking Qatar. Qatar is financing Hamas. And we're also financing Israel to an extent. Great. We're financing both ends of the war. That's fucking awesome. That's great. They believe in Sharia law. They treat women and gays differently than we do. That's great. That's awesome. Fucking based. Like, anyway, so after all that, let me take a swig here. After all that, and the speech that Carney made, clearly angering the American president, Il Donald Trumpo, Donald comes out with his greatest hit and just straight up says, yeah, you guys are no longer invited to the Board of Peace. Just completely disinvited us from the Board of Peace. The Board of Peace, which that was, it's a new international organization that Trump established to promote global stability and peace. It's starting with the oversight of Gaza's post-conflict reconstruction, but it's eventually going to be expanding to broader conflict zones. It was formally ratified at the WEF, and it aims to handle the demilitarization, governance reform, and massive rebuilding efforts, including Jared Kushner's investment of $25 billion. Well, not his investment, but his $25 billion vision to transform Gaza into a resort-like area with new cities. And look, whatever your opinions on the conflict in Gaza, whatever your opinions on who should be reconstructing, who should be benefiting it, not being a partner of this new organization as America's, neighbor, right? That's just the word that can encapsulate our relationship. Not being a part of that as their neighbor and having them as our main trading partner, that's got to sting, right? That's a problem. If we're not at the table, or at least a part of it at all, they're just shutting us out completely. That's not a good sign. That really is not a good sign. The most powerful economy and military in the world has set up this new organization, and its neighbor to the north, who has, the most incestuous relationship out of any trade relationship in the world, and we're not a part of it. That's fucking great. I'm so glad, because see, here's the more crazy thing. It's not that Donald Trump, like, oh my God, he flew off the handle. How could anybody predict this? Fine, you want to make that argument, sure. But you can't make that argument as Mark Carney, because Mark Carney literally ran on the fact that he's the Trump whisperer. He's the one to get a deal. He's the man to elect if you want stability. He's the man that understands how the world works, how the economic order works. Right? He understands how the bread is buttered, how the sausage is made. That was his whole appeal. That was what his whole campaign relied on, was his reputation as a global banker, as a person that understands how these relationships are formed, how these transactions happen, how deals are made. Right? That was the promise. That's what we were sold on. That's what he said. That's what he relied on. The entire campaign, that was his message. I am the man to take on Donald Trump. And look at this. Not even a year into his prime ministership, this is the state of the relationship with America. Is that we were banned from this trade deal. Or not trade deal, but this new organization. Which, once again, as I said, fine. You could blame it on Trump's rhetoric or his bravado, his ego, sure. But as I've pointed out multiple times, Canada has just shot itself in the foot time and time again with trade negotiations, that fucking video ad that Doug Ford put out, that Carney co-signed. Right? All this bluster and talk that Carney did at the WEF, that the speech that I was just talking about, how he was just defending his ability to tell America to go fuck itself. What did you expect would happen? You cut a deal with the Chinese. Why do you think America would be friendly to you? So now Carney's going to go back to his base and he's going to say, see, I told you. I told you. We're trying to build Canada first, and Donald Trump is just getting in the way. He's keeping us out of these deals. Right? Carney gets to blow up trade negotiations. He gets to go to China, make the deal to supplement the trade that we have with the U.S. that we've lost now, right, or are actively losing. And then when Donald Trump reacts accordingly, Carney also gets to double down and say, see, I told you so. I told you he'd do this. I mean, only after you cut a deal with America's enemy, China, only after you actively undermine trade negotiations and put out ridiculous fucking ads that enrage the president and the populace, only after all that, Donald Trump is going to react like this. Of course, he's in his right to react like this. Why are you doing this? There is no reason for it. We could literally just get along. We could literally just have the best relationship ever with the United States, even with Donald Trump as president. Those two ideas are not mutually exclusive. It's nuts. It's nuts. So anyways, immediately after this announcement, Carney canceled all of his public appearances completely, just surprised the entire media also. He was going to go to, like, when he made that speech in Quebec, they were also then going to go to a retreat in Quebec City. I forget where he made the speech, but anyways, they traveled to Quebec City. This is where the Liberals are going to have their retreat before Parliament returns on Monday, right? And essentially just touch base. All right, what are the speaking points? What are the talking points? What are we going to say during questioning period? You know, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? So on and so forth, right? They're going to iron out all those details. And that day when they were supposed to have media appearances to talk about their plan and how they're going to move forward at the United Front on the China deal and the Qatar deal, maybe say something about the WEF speech, right? The speech heard around the world that everyone was praising. CBC couldn't fucking help themselves. God, they weren't just eyes wide open. They were just fucking mouth wide open for Carney. Just slobbering on that knob. Completely sucking him dry with how much they were playing that shit up. What a transformational speech. Oh my God, a speech of a lifetime. It rings so true. Right? So after all that, right, when Carney could do his victory lap with the media, he decides to cancel all media appearances. Just on a whim. Nothing to do with the timing of Trump telling him to fuck off and eat rocks, essentially. Kick rocks, whatever. He might as well have told him to eat rocks. It's the same fucking result. Right? The exact same fucking result. Carney decides to cancel it. Wow. Maybe he was a little embarrassed. And the other thing is, the other angle was, okay, so he cancels the appearances, but the other problem is that Trump just completely shit on Canada's troops, NATO's troops, in their conflict in Afghanistan, which wasn't insignificant. right? Carney kind of owes them a response. Like, how's he going to stand up for the veterans? How's he going to stand up for the Canadian Armed Forces for what Trump said? Is he going to actually is he actually going to live up to this elbows up shit, or is he just going to hide and cower behind his party apparatus? I mean, the place where they were, apparently, right, where they're hiding out in Quebec City, the Liberal Party, where they're having their fucking powwow, apparently it's the main headquarters for the Van Duze Regiment, whose soldiers actually died in Afghanistan. They're literally in the place where the photos of these men hang, of at least 6 soldiers that died in Afghanistan. That's where they're meeting. I mean, did none of this significance fall on them? Did none of these people think, hey, maybe we should actually say something? Maybe we should get ahead of it and offer at least like a quick counter statement? Like, Carney could have just said, look, it's been a long day. It's been a long trip. I've met with a lot of people. I don't have a lot of time, so I will say this. You know, we'll answer everything in question period tomorrow, or we'll have media appearances tomorrow. But for now, I know I needed to get this out of the way before I go in and meet with my party members. What Trump said was fucked up, and fuck him. Like, even something along the lines of that. Right? To rebuke his statement, to say that we are disappointed with how Trump views this, because Canadians actually did sacrifice, right? We did go over there. We did fight with their regiments. No, not even that. Not even a statement to defend the veterans. Nope. Canceled fucking everything. And not just that, but the moment that anybody, that the media asked him, how are your talks with Trump? I mean, this is just becoming a fucking pattern at this point. Carney just openly dismisses it. Just completely ignores the question. Or just says something else. Like, look at this. Let me just play this clip.
What about Lutnick's comments?
What a boring question. Think of a new one. What a boring question. Think of a new one. We're getting to the end of the show, and I'm honestly, my outrage tank is running low, but the balls that you have to like more than half of his platform going into the election and during the election was about, I am the guy to stand up to Trump. I will secure the best deal. I will represent Canada's interests on the world stage. I am the statesman. And when he gets asked about Trump in uncomfortable times, his response is to run away or to say, oh, I don't even care. Ask me another question. Because this is the second time at least that he's done this. The other time, the infamous one, is like, who cares? He just flippantly said, who cares the last time I talked to Trump? Who gives a shit? I got more important shit to focus on. What are you talking about? Your entire candidacy predicated on the fact that you are the Trump whisperer. You don't get to just dismiss him. You don't get to make him a focal point of your entire being as a political candidate and then dismiss him when it doesn't benefit you. That's not how that works. You don't get to flip-flop like that and expect people to not notice. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. The cognitive dissonance here is insane. And once again, people say, oh, white pill, you don't understand. This is how politics is. It's all about optics and it's all about messaging and yada, yada. I understand that. I am not retarded. I understand that. But see, a leader that operates from strength, from a position of strength and power, does not behave like this. This is not a strong leader. This is not strong leadership. This is not showing the pride of Canada, right? I'm not asking for Carney to walk out with national media all around to whip out his dick and slam it on the table and say, "Eat this, Mr. Trump." He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to. But answering a question like that so flippantly, not even like stopping to talk to the press and say, "Hey, I know, I got it handled. I'm dealing with it," or anything more clever than that. Nope, he just goes into dismissal mode and says, "Oh, who cares? Ask me another question." What a boring question. I don't care. Who cares when the last time I talked to him? Who gives a shit? They're only our biggest trading partner. They're only the strongest economy in the world. They're only the strongest army in the world. We've only had the strongest relationship with them for 100+ years out of any other country when it comes to trade or otherwise. I mean, we are incestuously bound to the US, and this is his fucking response? This is the guy that's supposed to know how the world works and act accordingly? Okay. Sure. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, his only job was to go in and negotiate a win with Trump. That's why he was elected. And this is how he's acting? Great. That's fucking awesome. And if you don't believe me, I mean, even the CBC was echoing these points. All right, let's give this a listen.
The issue of not having a trade deal, and I know a lot of people would prefer to have this settled. But, you know, the UK and the EU did have whatever they have. They thought it was settled. Then they got threatened with tariffs unless Denmark gave up 90% of its territory. Now, that's not where it's apparently ended up, but they're giving up chunks of Greenland to him because he demanded it or else, right? So how do you reasonably get a deal with an administration that is acting like this and treating its partners like this? I mean, I just don't know what the path is.
Well, you start by getting back to the table, and the Prime Minister was elected to do just that. He said he was the right guy for the job in order to get back and have, again, his words, a new economic and security partnership with the United States. I know the last 9-10 months has been disruptive. I think that's putting it lightly. For decades and decades and decades before that, we had a stable and secure relationship with our largest trading partner. Going to Davos and giving a speech talking about a significant break in that relationship that serves as the grounds to, again, pursue we're not just talking about trade diversification, but rewriting the nature of relationships that we have with countries, including up until 9 months ago, our enemies. There's a difference between diversifying and then that wholesale shift that the Prime Minister is, I think, making the case for today. We have to remember that the U.S. is going to exist long after Donald Trump. Our relationship with them is very, very close. The Prime Minister was elected to try and get a resolution there, and that should remain part of the focus. So, and speechifying and then not even meeting with the man while there, to me, doesn't advance the Prime Minister's apparent objective of getting back and getting to the trade and negotiation table.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Literally couldn't have said it better myself. This is not a good look. You were elected to do a job. You're not doing the job. Not only that, but you're fucking tanking the job. And you're acting flippant about it, like it doesn't fucking matter. Like you weren't just yelling elbows up at the top of your lungs not even 6 months ago. It's a complete disregard. Complete disregard for why Canadians are in the place that they find themselves in the world and in their own nation. And so this whirlwind tour that Carney has gone on, I mean, look, I understand that maybe there's some praise to be given, like, okay, fine, so we get some modest economic output from the trade deal with China. Okay, maybe there's a win with Qatar. Okay, maybe in the WEF when he had the speech, he was in some ways right to say that the world order of the master powers is over and now it's up to the middle powers to determine where they are in the world. Okay, sure. I can concede some facts around that, but when you look at the totality of the trip, when you look at the actual achievements of the trip, what it achieved versus what was said, it doesn't pass the smell test. and it smells like fucking shit. It smells like Canadians are about to get fucked in entirely new ways. You know, because the one thing I didn't even mention about his speech there in Quebec is that it had all these nationalist undertones. That we have to unite as Canadians, and diversity is our strength, and so on and so forth. You know, for the past 10 years, the government of Canada under the Liberal Party has, at every turn, undermined our national identity as a people in more ways than one. And I will be talking about that as the show progresses, because there's no end to instances of this happening. I mean, during COVID, statues being toppled, universities being renamed, entire history just being wiped out, hundreds of churches burning across the nation. Right? This idea that Canada is a uniquely evil colonialist-based nation, that slaves received, or that we had slavery, not to the extent that the U.S. did, but that we had slavery, that we're somehow fundamentally responsible for that. The current generation is for the wrongdoings of the people that lived way back when. I mean, all those things with the residential schools, how that turned out to be a fucking fake, right? All of that effectively eroded any semblance of nationalism within Canada. They completely destroyed our national pride, and they made us feel bad about it. And now, when they need it most, when it would benefit them the most in the polls, they want to dip into nationalism? You want to tell me to be patriotic about my country? Fuck you. And I'm not saying that as if I'm not patriotic or I'm not proud to be Canadian. I am. I'm pretty fucking damn proud to be a Canadian. Right? But not the Canada that they want to build. Not the Canada that Carney wants to build. Right? Nationalism is not just a piggy bank that you can go into and withdraw your funds anytime you like. National unity is not something that you can turn on and off. It's a finite resource. And it bends and it bends and it bends, and eventually it will snap and it will break. And you're going to force the people to do drastic things. It's not an infinite resource. You don't get to just stand there and tell us we have to have pride for our nation and where we are and how far we've come. Really, we're thriving? You want to stand there on the world stage and tell us that we're fucking thriving? It couldn't be further from the truth. Canada is nowhere near where it could be as a nation economically, culturally, politically, with our army, with our intelligence services. In every instance of the word, we are not thriving. GDP per capita has stagnated for 10 years. People are going to food banks at record high rates. We have 100,000 plus people dying in a fucking wait list for the last 8 years, waiting for medical care. Our brightest and smartest are going south of the border because the job opportunities there are better and the quality of life there is better. And despite all of that, I love this country. I want it to succeed. That's why I'm doing this show. That's why I'm doing the Whitepill project. I want Canada to succeed. Canada first all the fucking way, but not their way. Not what Carney is suggesting, because I ain't buying it. I ain't fucking buying this shit, and neither should you. And neither should you. So I've been talking for long enough, and we'll end off the episode there. But as always, every link that I've posted here, every source that I've used will be made available. You can check the description of the episode. It will be down there below. Stay tuned for the next episode. We're coming back this Monday. I'm going to start talking more about Greenland and some other things that are left out on this podcast. But for timing's sake, because it's almost 5 a.m. where I'm at, Jesus fucking Christ. Gotta get to sleep at some point, guys. We'll be covering all that, and like I said, for the next few Wednesdays, for the next 3 Wednesdays in a row, My co-host, Mr. Fireside Talks, and I will be going over the convoy, everything leading up to it, what happened there, and talking about his experience there and more stuff. So I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this episode. And I realized that before we actually end it off, I realized that a lot of this, if you dig too deep into it, it's extremely blackpilling, and it's very difficult to see a way out. I understand that. I totally empathize with that. I find myself having those exact thoughts whenever I do research for these episodes. Because life in Canada, it's shades of gray. It's not black and white. Shades of gray. There's plenty to be thankful for in this world. There's plenty to be thankful for in Canada. And the white pill here, ultimately, is that all it takes to see where we're actually at and to think of solutions and how to actually make it so that this country is a viable and thriving, actually thriving place to live. All it takes is willpower. That's all it takes. Because I know that this video might not get millions of views, and God knows how many people are even watching at this point. But I know for a fact, in my heart of hearts, right, if I can find all this information and connect these links, right, if I'm able to poke holes in their messaging, in the government's messaging, in the Liberal Party's messaging, in the political machine's messaging, if a random anonymous retard like me can do it, anyone can do it. Okay? Anyone can do it. Anyone can go and see for themselves what life is actually like if they just dig a little deeper, go beyond their biases, and just look at the facts. And as soon as we have enough people doing that, as soon as we have enough people that are, I mean, for lack of a better word, just awake, you know, not listening to CBC all the time, not just going along with it, not just putting up that sign at the shop, right, as Carney said. The more people that are actually going against the grain on this, on where they tell us that Canada is, on this fiction that we're sold here, peddled by fucking shitbag journalists, by our state-run media, rather, I should say. The more people that do that, the more things will head in the right direction, and Canada will right its course, because we have to. There is no other choice. We quite literally have to go through a generational transformation. Nothing short of that will save this country, and I believe we are capable. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this show. So I hope that you can at least take away that message. If you've taken away anything tonight, once again, if you guys want to support the stream, if you go to bio.link/whitepill, you can find all the links there. Just by, you know, listening, watching, liking, subscribing, commenting, that is greatly appreciated. Thank you to each and every one of you that does that. If you want to support the stream financially, as always, PayPal link is the first link there on the site. I don't read donations unless it's through the PayPal, so if you have any questions that you want answered, that would be the way to do it. There's no minimum on donations either. You can just literally throw a penny my way, and I'll read it within limits. I'm not unreasonable, okay? But I mean, if it's actually some hateful shit, I don't know if I'm actually gonna read it. But in any case, I thank each and every one of you for watching the show. We'll be back this coming Monday. I hope you all have a terrific evening or start to your day now, because depending where you are in Canada, it might be 7 a.m. But yes, we'll see you guys Monday. Thanks again for tuning in, and have yourselves a blessed night.